Planning Commissioners, we're ready to begin the meeting.
Okay, it is November 7th. This is the Elbert County Planning Commission, and it is 7:08. Show the start time. We normally start our meetings with a prayer and a pledge. So if you please, could all stand. Anybody unnominated? Okay. All right. See, dear Jesus, please hear the prayers from those struggling with any situation. Our county is seeing an increased use in the food banks. We're seeing many more requests from our organizations, our charitable organizations. I ask that you hear the prayers from all of you present. I ask that they protect you in your travels. And I ask that you thank Him for the things that are going well. So with that, in the name of Jesus, amen. Amen. Good pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, roll call, please.
Danny Wilcox.
Here.
Kevin Kirkwood. Van Sands.
Here.
Dwayne Owens.
Here.
Eric Carlson. Eric Carlson. Absent. Mike Buck.
Here.
Roger Burton.
Here.
Dee Dee Schott Grace.
Present.
Robert Polatek.
Here.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, what's the next on? Oh, so you better say this. Remember, to turn off your cell phones, okay, folks? All right, staff report, Board of County Commissioners, actions pertaining to the matters of this board. Do we have anything there, Mark?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Mark Denreiter, Director of Community and Economic Development. I have nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, did you folks want to ask a question real quick? I know you had brought up just before we start into this, if you ask.
Sure. Mark, on your analysis and evaluation, what is the policy RD2, policy CD2, PS2? What are those acronyms?
Are you referring to items referenced in the one of the items on the agenda?
On the report that you did, on the analysis and evaluation, page 3 of 5.
Yeah, one moment. Let me take a look at that. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Commissioner. Yes, you're referring to the numbers and lettering as it pertains to items out of our comprehensive plan. Okay. Is that right?
It certainly could be. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are from the comp plan, as they're stated in that document.
So R would be referencing. Comprehensive plan would be CD2, then you have an RD2, PS2, TR1, WS2. They're all from the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, those are all comp plan items, and those are referring to policies. and that is just the way they are identified in the comp plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Guys got that covered? Okay. All right, this next section is citizen comments. Now, this section is for any comments unrelated to the application, because we're going to hear comments on each phase of this application, and there's a specific time for that. So if there's any comments that you have, seeing none, on to the next. Unrelated to the applications. Okay. Sir, please, if you could, state your name. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate all you serving. Gotcha. It's Don Gray, Gray, 16,000 Highway 86. My comments tonight are on Excel. First of all, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you for serving the community. We definitely do appreciate it. It's a job that's can be thankless. We know that for sure, but we do thank you regardless of that. My comments are on Excel. You're going to be starting to see more and more applications come in. We're talking about EC West, EC East, and Excel. These are pretty large projects coming into the county, and you're going to be tasked with addressing those issues as they come forward. Excel is pretty intent on what they've chosen. We don't have a formal application as so, but when that application should come forward, there's going to be a lot that has to go. And in your own 1041 regulations, I just want to read you one little paragraph that I need a response to once the application does come in. It's about a community meeting. Applicants are required to conduct a community meeting prior to submitting a formal 1041 application. This meeting must be conducted in a general vicinity of the property involved in the application and serves to provide a forum for information exchange between applicants and citizens. By conducting community meeting prior to the formal application submittal, it is anticipated that the applicants understand community concerns and shall demonstrate how they adjusted their application related to the community input into the application. I'd like to read that again. They need to adjust their application related to the community input that was given to them. We, as citizens, we're going to ask you to hold them to that, because in this very room, we had 300 people show up here opposed to Excel, and the comments all show that, and I'll be very curious to find out how they respond to that, how they formally are going to address the negative that they have here when there's not very much positive. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any others? Okay. Next step, I guess we have a couple meeting minutes to approve. October 3rd minutes. Did anybody review?
The middle school and high school are on County Road 17. That's County Road 13.
13. Good, Rod.
Yeah, on item number 3, page 4, comments from Donna Palmer. The minutes read that it was pointed out that the middle school and high school are on County Road 17, and that should be County Road 13.
Any others? Okay, Roger, thank you. Can I have an amendment to approve the minutes with the corrections? To the motion?
So moved. Approve the minutes as modified. October 3rd meeting.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, on to the next group. We've got October 17 minutes. You got something on those, Roger? You got anything on the October 7? No? Okay. Okay. Anybody? Okay, they look good? Okay. Can we have a motion to... Okay, second? Van, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Okay. At this point, we're going to go into our public hearing process, and got a little bit of information to give out here. First of all, I'll start with us as a group. The Planning Commission is a volunteer group. They call us a quasi-judicial commission. What that means is we essentially take the application at hand and we reference the codes and ordinance that are here, that we have, and that's what we compare it to. That's what we judge it with. So we are a volunteer group. Okay, at the time, after we go through this hearing, we can vote three ways. We can vote to approve, to deny, or approve with conditions. Now, when I say vote to approve, what that means is all we can do is recommend. So when we vote to approve, we're recommending approval. It will be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners, who actually has the authority to approve the application. So as we go through this, just remember that that's what we have the capability of doing. So the way this process works, and this is going to be a little bit probably lengthy, it will start with our staff, the CDS, presenting the application. Okay, and how we're going to do it, we've got two things we're going to present together. Okay, we're going to present the PUD, Plan Unit Development, and we're going to present the preliminary plat. Now we will present both those because they're kind of a combined project. We'll go through, they'll present that, then the applicant will present both sides of it. Okay, and at that point, what we will do after everything's presented, then we will go to citizen comment. And we will allow everyone to comment on the first part of it, which is the PUD. And once those are complete, we will then go into a citizen comment portion on the preliminary plat. Because our process needs to show that people got to voice their opinion, what have you, on each section. After that's completed, then we will go through, then we will probably then try to rebut, answer, what have you, inform you of the questions that were brought up, and we will do that through the applicant, staff, and possibly us. After that's over, then what we will do, this group up here will ask our questions, and then we will vote on it. And there will be two votes. There will be a vote for the PUD, and then there will be a vote for the preliminary plat. And then after that, of course, then we will go into the service plans. Okay. Hope that's clear as mud, all right? So, okay. So to get started, like I said, we'll start with Mark, please.
Pardon me, Chair, if I may. For the audience, any public comments, would you please step up to the podium and sign your name in print and then your address so I can have those for the minutes. So if you have a chance now and you know that you're going to speak, if you'd please sign at the podium. Thank you.
When public comment starts, I will actually give a little bit of overview on what we would like you to do, okay, through the public comment. Okay, so, all right. Oh, I will go over that. When we go into public comment, I will go over how we're going to try to manage that. Okay? All right.
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commission members. My name is Sandra Hoffman. I'm a senior associate with Logan Simpson. I'm a contract plan reviewer for Elbert County Community and Development Services Department, and I'm the one working on the EC West project. What my presentation will do at first is go over some general information about the site as well as the application. Then I'll go into more information related to the plan unit development, PUD rezoning, and then after that I'll follow up with the preliminary plat information. Did it work? All right. Didn't change. There we go. Hit it harder. Sorry. So basically, the rezoning is changing from ag to the plan unit development, and then the preliminary plat is also a part of that. They're going concurrently. The size of the area is 1,464 acres, and it's basically at the intersection of County Road 29 and County Road 174. And so I will be going through each of those a little bit more detail. Oh, what just happened? Back up. Here we go. Okay. Landowner information was included for both of them. Concurrent review is going on that happened for the PUD rezoning and the preliminary plat. There was a pre-application meeting for the PUD rezoning on April the 14th, but there was also additional submittals, referrals as you would call them, where they would submit their plans. We would send them out for comments. I'll go over some more of that later. But the rezoning went through 4 cycles of referrals, and the preliminary plat went through 2 cycles of referrals to get reviewed. The vicinity map on the screen is showing you EC West projects located in the unincorporated Elbert County, generally located southeast of the intersection of County Road 29 and County Road 174. It's 11 miles northeast of the town of Elizabeth, 15 miles north of the town of Kiowa, and 16.5 miles east of the town of Parker. There's some aerials on here you can kind of see behind there, and the project shows the ownership as well as some lot lines on there, and the Kiowa Creek tributary, which is on far to the east. So the surrounding land uses and zoning include the PUD zoning to the north, which has some single-family homes, which is Sun Country Meadows PUD. To the south is agricultural open land, as the east and west as well. And there's a couple of out parcels. When you look at the layout of the site, you're going to see a big chunk of land. That's the State Land Board. And then there's Robinson Brick as well that's surrounded a little bit by it. So the rezoning, this is the part that's just focusing on that. It's not the general information that applies to both of them. So for the rezoning, you can see the overall area that is in green. That highlights where that project is located. And the process for doing a PUD is to have a development guide. This development guide establishes the land uses, permitted densities, the development standards, the applications that you would need to make sure that they meet as they move forward with their project. And the project will be constructed in various phases. I think they will go through that. There's 2 villages within that, and within each village there's going to be several phases that they build out over time. So it will take some time for that to occur. The referrals that it was sent out to are listed on the screen. Basically, I will send those out. We ask for them to have feedback. I incorporate the feedback, and as I mentioned, the rezoning case went through 4 referral cycles before they had everything all addressed and felt comfortable with it, and then the PUD, preliminary plat had 2 reviews that happened. And the only comments, most of them have been addressed. The only outstanding one related to the Department of Water Resources. I will mention that later on when we do the recommendation and the conditions of approval that have addressed that item. As was sort of discussed a little bit earlier, it meets the general requirements that are in the zoning regulations as well as the comprehensive plan for Elbert County. And so those policies that you'll see in a few minutes are me going through your comprehensive plan and looking and identifying how those policies are being met by the proposed project. So the rezoning, you want to ensure one of the key things that you have innovative approach to residential, commercial, and recreational land uses. So innovative is part of the key of being a plan unit development. It takes your standardized zoning and it allows an applicant to modify it slightly and create a product that is equal to or better than what you have in your base zoning district. And so that's the intent behind the PUD and for it to be built that way. So they will have a variety of different housing types, and they vary in different sizes of lots from half an acre down in size. And they have large sort of detached single-family homes, and they may have further down with smaller lots get to where they're more attached product. The intent behind it, as you'll see in a few minutes, is that they're clustering the homes somewhat close in proximity, so that allows for them to provide that 50% or greater open space area. They also have fencing requirements in there that will be wildlife friendly, so that was another item that wanted to be addressed. So this is where all the different acronyms that come from the comprehensive plan are in there. These are all policies that relate to land use and community and economic development and such. So one of the 6 plan unit development review criteria that they have in the code is here. And so number 1 is to ensure that it is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so the list of policies below that, these have all been met through the review of the project that's being proposed for EC West. It's preserving open space, it's got commercial near the arterial roads, near the county roads, the developers contributing to fire facilities, and they have arterial roads they will be building, so there's a network that will manage the traffic. There's a special service district. They're creating their own district that will be managing a lot of the infrastructure there and maintaining it. The reducing noxious plants. They actually have a plan to how to ensure to reduce the noxious plants, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife have reviewed it, and with the open space and the connectivity for the trail systems and such, and the fencing that they've designed will address that. The second item is it's compatible with the surrounding land uses, as was gone over earlier. There's a PUD to the north, some single-family homes, a lot of open space around it, and with the out parcels that are Colorado State Board and Robinson Brick also kind of coming down into it. They've provided landscape buffers along the perimeter. They've clustered the residents and the commercial development, and they have a minimum of 50% open space. Number 3 is that it won't adversely impact the provisions of public services. And in that, they are providing resources for the Elizabeth School District and the Fire District, as well as the Sheriff's Office. They will have improvements internally and surrounding for roadways. They've included pedestrian and bicycle internal circulation and trails, and they have improvements for a central water and wastewater system, so they meet that condition. For number 4, that rezoning will not adversely impact the environment. So one of the key EC West core principles is conservation-minded communities. So again, having the majority in open space, designing to work with the topography, avoiding the 20% or greater slopes and any of the floodplain tributaries that exist, and being wildlife friendly. The 5th condition is it's not going to create unreasonable traffic congestion or burden the existing road system without improvements. So there's 4 access points to manage the traffic flow into the site. The trail system's going to connect to the regional trail system. There's been a traffic impact study, and there's been comments and reviewed. As I mentioned, there was at least 4 reviews that address any concerns that may happen, and a traffic engineer signed off on that. And the collector and local roads will be operated and maintained by a district that will be created. The 6th one is the proposed rezoning will not otherwise be detrimental to health, safety, or welfare of the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. So the uses, when you do a PUD, you get to identify the uses that are allowed. None of the uses will contribute to the air pollution and noise that would be a nuisance to those around it. It's preserving 50% of the open space. The landscape buffers are provided, and they're going to use dark sky lighting to minimize the impact of lighting. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the following, these 4 conditions. The proposed rezoning is in general conformance to the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. The proposed rezoning meets the criteria for approval through the zoning regulations. The rezoning meets the requirements of not only that, the PUD requirements that they've outlined, and the proposed rezoning will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. So Community and Development Services Department recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval for the EC West PUD rezoning located southeast of County Road 29 and County Road 174 with the following conditions. First, the applicant would be required to remove their public hearing sign within 7 days of the Board of County Commissioners. The developer must demonstrate that the Board of County Commissioners has approved the service plan for 1 or more metropolitan districts authorized to provide the water within the plan boundary area no later than December 31st, 2024, or provide the county with a proposed financing plan demonstrating capacity to construct the water infrastructure and serve the community shown on the plan no later than July 1st, 2025. And then the development guide agreement, it's been reviewed by the county attorney, and they found it in acceptable form. So next will be the preliminary plat case number 21026. So the preliminary plat exhibits up there where you can see the homes are clustered, and the area is better shown to where you can see the open space area in this graphic where it's green. So the green area shows you, and you can see the perimeter areas have landscaping in them, and there's a buffer area. And again, the intent for having some smaller size lots is that you're pulling things away so that you can have that open space area and minimize the impacts around the surroundings. The preliminary plat meets the requirements that are in the subdivision regulations, and one of the key ones is open space to allow them to do that conservation community. So they have more than, at least 50% of the gross land area in open space. It's logically contiguous in connectivity. The open space has a variety of different uses, including different active and passive activities that can occur. They've got little pocket parks in the development, as well as natural open space areas that are undisturbed. So open space will be dedicated to either a special district or a qualifying nonprofit, and part of the district creation is going to be the one that will be maintaining and ensuring that the open space will be there for perpetuity. The housing requirement's been met. Again, they meet that because they're going to be doing the conditions that we have outlined already in the PUD rezoning to assure that they have that 300-year aquifer allocation to be able to provide the water for that. The diverse housing types, the different size lots that they're providing supports that, so that you can have single-family detached townhouses, patio homes, duplexes, so that a variety of different people of different ages and variety of incomes will be able to afford these types of homes in this development. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the following for the preliminary plat. The plat's in general conformance with the comprehensive plan. The plat meets the criteria for the Elbert County zoning regulations and the PUD development guidelines that have been created. The plat meets the requirements of the subdivision regulations, and the plat will not significantly impact the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners in the surrounding area. So Community and Development Services recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval for the EC West preliminary plat located southeast of County Road 29 and County Road 174, case number preliminary plat 21026. with the following 4 conditions. The applicant will be required to remove the public hearing signs within 7 days of the Board of County Commissioners. The plat will not be effective until all fees are paid and conditions of approval are met. And the same case of the stipulations that we had with the PUD rezoning, the bottom 2 are the same. The developer must demonstrate that the Board of County Commissioner has approved the service plan for 1 or more metropolitan districts authorized to provide the water within the plan boundary no later than December 31st, 2024, or provide the county with a proposed financing plan demonstrating capacity to construct the water infrastructure and serve the community shown on the plan no later than July 1st, 2025. And again, the same note that the development guide agreement is completed and acceptable to the county attorney in final form. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
At this point, what we'll do is we'll ask the applicant to present your application. Do you folks have, okay. Oh, you're going to put these on? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you ready for me to jump in?
Go right ahead.
Okay, sorry. So good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jim Yates with Kraft Companies. I want to say thank you for your time tonight. We do appreciate it. I will start with, let's see if I can change the thing. Introducing our team. We have Carolyn White with Brownstein. She's our land use attorney. Bruce Lytle with Lytle Water Solutions. He's our water supply engineer. Dave Takeda with MSK Consulting. He's our water and wastewater permit, operations, construction engineer. Chris McGranahan with LSC Transportation, down here. And Andrew Knutson with Economic and Planning Systems for our economic impacts. In addition to the presentation team, we also have Brian Hart and Susan Wade with Redland. Brian's our engineer of record, and Susan is our landscape architect and planner. And then Marie Russo with ERO Resources for our environmental studies. And then Diane Miller, who will do the presentation on our service plans. So as many of you know, we follow the basic tenets of a LID process, which is a low impact development. These principles include dark sky compliance except in our high volume intersections. So when safety kind of trumps the dark skies, and we have lights at those intersections. Along with stormwater integration, walkability, and Sandy said earlier, clustering of homes to kind of provide larger tracts of open space. So then the smart growth kind of takes, is that too close? You want closer? Smart growth takes the open space tracts and wraps them around these neighborhoods for easier access, integration to our outdoor activities, wildlife corridors, and extensive trail systems. We continue to remain committed to dedicating 50% of our open space to integrate the rural character into our overall design. Moving on to water conservation. Water conservation and water reuse are cornerstones of our core principles. As you'll see later in the presentation, water reuse is integrated in the design up front, plays an important role in serving outdoor demands across the project. The water reuse will be treated at the state's highest recommended level and piped back to the homes for outdoor use. Our community outreach, we've held multiple community meetings with the area residents and some of the Sun Country HOA members, discuss impacts, timing, and how we can work together. Additionally, we're actively involved in supporting local businesses, community organizations, and making contributions to the local nonprofit organizations. We'll continue to work with our service providers. Kiowa and Rattlesnake Fire Districts are both covering this property, and we're working with them each individually and together. The Chamber of Commerce, Elizabeth School District, Sheriff's Department, and Elizabeth Parks and Rec. These organizations are important to build a great community and are critical to the overall health of the county. With that, I'll turn it over to Carolyn.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, County staff, members of the public. My name is Carolyn White. I'm Land Use Counsel for the applicant. How's this volume? Can y'all hear me okay? All right, very good. Thank you for the opportunity to present this application for you tonight. As you know, we're here tonight to request that you recommend approval of the two companion applications, the PUD rezoning along with the preliminary plat, and then there's a separate presentation that will follow these presentations related to the service plan. As was already, we're going to present similar information to what was already presented to you by staff, but perhaps in a little bit more detail with a little more color and obviously from the applicant's perspective, so you can hear a little bit about the vision that the applicant has for this community. We also are going to lay out the criteria, explain the details of the project, bring up our experts to explain those details, and then tie it all together and explain how the project meets all of the applicable criteria, as you mentioned at the beginning, Mr. Chairman. And the paper copy that we handed out, I'll just mention, is just a duplicate of the slides we're showing here. So the members of the public will be seeing the exact same thing. We just wanted there to be a paper copy in case the audiovisual didn't work tonight. Well, thank you for the opportunity. This application proposes the rezoning of approximately 1,464 acres of undeveloped land in unincorporated Elbert County. You already know the location, County Road 29 and County Road 174. Once approved, this application will permit the development of a conservation community, which was already described a little bit, with a total of up to 2,850 diverse home types spread across 2 different villages, clustered into 2 designated areas for potential commercial uses and the hundreds of acres of parks, trails, and open space. This project is anticipated to be built in multiple phases over approximately 20 years, and its development will benefit existing, returning, and new county residents. We've been working closely with county staff and the county attorney on a related development agreement, which is not part of tonight's presentation, but will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Metro District Service Plan, which will be presented to you subsequent to this. Neither of those will be part of our presentation tonight. And then just as an aside, I noticed this, Sandra mentioned it briefly in her report, all of the requirements for publication, for notice, for posting, mailing, and published notice have been complied with for this project. So tonight we respectfully request that you recommend approval of both the PUD and the preliminary subdivision plat for EC West ahead of our scheduled hearing before the Board of County Commissioners on December 12th of this year. As you know, a PUD zone district is custom zoning. It's designed specifically for a specific piece of property, as was already mentioned, to allow innovative, creative, and customized uses, densities, setbacks, heights, and other standards in order to deliver something that's a little different and perhaps of a potentially higher quality than what default standardized zoning might deliver. The preliminary plat is the first step in a multi-step process of creating the actual lots for each parcel, figuring out where the streets and the roads and all the easements are going to be. So I won't repeat these. These are the PUD criteria in your PUD regulation. We're going to demonstrate this evening how all of these criteria are met. And as noted in the staff report, the staff analysis has concluded that all of these criteria are met. Additionally, you've got two flavors of PUD in your regulation. You've got traditional, regular residential communities, and you've got conservation communities. The primary difference between those two things is that in a conservation community, the housing is clustered together, minimizing the amount of space that is developed and allowing for maximizing the amount of open space, and also allowing the open space to be more contiguous and larger tracts of open space so that they can all be connected and potentially increase the potential for wildlife habitat and general usability of open space. So this application is striving for the conservation community because we think that will deliver a better community consistent with this rural character of the area. In addition to the PUD and the conservation community, as mentioned, we're also requesting approval of the preliminary plat. This slide summarizes those criteria. We've got the sustainable 300-year water supply. We've got the provision of a sewage disposal system. We're going to present a little bit more about both of those to you in a little more detail tonight. And then we've got compatibility with topographic conditions, compliance with the zoning, the Elbert County regulations, subdivision regulations, and compliance with the comprehensive plan. There's also in the code actually two other overarching considerations that are not shown on this slide and not technically listed as a criteria, but they ask the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners to consider generally whether the proposed development is suitable for the area that it's being proposed and whether the area has the resources to support it. And as we'll show you tonight, both of those considerations are also met. So starting first with comprehensive plan, since both the PUD criteria and the preliminary plat have as the very first criterion, or as one of the important criterion, compliance with the comprehensive plan, we want to talk a little bit more about how this application supports the goals of the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. On this slide, we're showing you again the vicinity map, so you already know where the project is. It's the lighter yellow there in the top right of the screen. Some of the other developments in the vicinity are shown in a darker yellow color there. But the comprehensive plan actually says that the western portion of Elbert County, which is kind of blown up on the screen here, is the targeted area for further subdivision and development, right in line with what's being proposed here by EC West. So just kind of starting off in terms of the vicinity chosen, there is some consistency with the comprehensive plan there. The comprehensive plan is divided into 5 different sections, and this goes back to the question that was asked at the beginning. Each one of those sections lists a variety of different goals and policies, and each of those policies is labeled with a number and the letters related to that section, so land use, community resources, and so on. On this slide, we're showing you the land use and community resources, and some of the ways that this proposed PUD will advance these goals is providing for a wide diversity of housing types, lot sizes, and price points. So single-family detached, clustered single-family attached, multifamily housing, just in line with that goal and also in conformance with the recent housing needs assessment for Elbert County, which says that we ought to seek to provide a wide diversity of housing types and price points. Additionally, the PUD will include 2 strategically selected locations, which I'll show you in a moment, that are suitable for commercial development and designated for commercial development. And that's also in line with another goal in the comprehensive plan, supporting the growth of commercial uses to provide needed goods and services to serve the community. The PUD will also advance some of these community resources goals on the right-hand side of the screen, in particular by creating the Metropolitan District, which will design, construct, finance, own, operate, and maintain the vast majority of infrastructure and services to serve this development. It will, number one, ensure that all those services are provided for the development and also ensure that there is no burden on existing county services in order to provide services to the new residents of this community. And additionally, the project will support public safety services by including payment of fees or land dedication in support of the Sheriff's Department, Fire Protection District, and public schools. And I'll show you where the potential public school sites are here in just a minute. Some of the other comprehensive plan goals and policies deal with natural resources, economic development, and recreation and tourism. As has been mentioned a couple times, the project will dedicate a minimum of 50% of the property as preserved open space, And because of the clustered development, this open space will be larger, more contiguous, and more usable for trails, for wildlife habitat, for existing topography and drainages than it otherwise would be in a traditional subdivision. This also provides enhanced opportunities for water conservation, recycling, trails, and natural amenities, thus supporting several of the goals and policies listed on this slide. Also, this PUD is going to advance some of the economic development goals by providing opportunities for commercial development, job opportunities, and also opportunities for potential workforce to live closer to where they work. So here's just a little bit more detail about exactly what is in the PUD for EC West. As has been mentioned, it's 1,464 acres. It's mixed-use residential, and that includes a range of 1,940 to 2,850 residential units spread across those two villages that I mentioned. The two commercial designated areas will range from a minimum of 12 acres to a maximum of 40 acres. And as mentioned, the conservation community calls for clustered development and more than 50% open space. The development will be phased over time, going from east to west. And I have another slide that'll show you a little bit more about that in just a moment. We also want to highlight how including the metropolitan districts and the regional infrastructure improvements will ensure that the project will not adversely impact the provision of public services going on into the future. The project will supply its own state-of-the-art water and wastewater system. It will involve formation of a district to provide those public services, and the project has an adjudicated and sustainable 300-year water supply, which we'll give you a little bit more detail about here in a minute. This depicts one segment, one sheet from the planned unit development. We're, as mentioned, seeking to rezone the property from agricultural to PUD to allow for a mix of residential and retail uses, as well as parks, open space, school sites, community services, police, fire, and medical. I'll just highlight a couple of things on this map. On the far west side, or the right side of that graphic, you can see a little area outlined in red. That's one of the two designated commercial areas. The other one is on the bottom left of this screen on the far, I said the first one's on the far east, the second one's on the far west. Two little commercial areas there outlined in red. And then you can also see at the northwestern arm of it is one of the potential school sites. And the other potential school site is sort of smack dab in the middle along the bottom there. The other thing I'd like to highlight on this graphic is that Village 1 is on the eastern side, and that's in a slightly darker green on this drawing, and Village 2 is on the east side, it's in a slightly lighter green in this drawing. So the phasing will start on the west side and work eastward. I said east to west before. I'm sorry, it's west to east. I'm turned around looking at that graphic. The utilities, the internal road infrastructure, the roadway and access improvements from County Roads 29 and 174 will all also be phased in a similar manner. This is general locations depicted here on the PUD. The final alignments will, of course, be set forth in the final plats when those final plats come forward to you. So the way that the PUD guide works and the way that the PUD accomplishes all these goals is there's the PUD guide document itself, which is part of the PUD approval that has been reviewed by staff that you will be considering. And it sets forth the land uses, the permitted densities, and then also the development standards applicable to each planning area. The development standards, in turn, go into more detail about setbacks, heights, design, aesthetics, signage, lighting, landscape standards, and so on. And all of those standards are also set forth in the PUD document itself in order to ensure that the character of the PUD that it's trying to achieve is achieved regardless of who actually ends up building each stick of vertical construction. And that is what delivers the community character, which is summarized on the far right of this graphic for the conservation community. That's how we're going to deliver the minimum 50% open space. That's how the development will be clustered and therefore more consistent with the rural character that the comprehensive plan says is desirable in this location. It's also, it conserves natural resources compared to traditional style development by clustering development together It minimizes the amount of impermeable paved surface that gets created to support the development, and supports dark sky goals with the lighting standards that we're going to be incorporating. Also, it's not shown on the drawing per se, because the drawing's at such large scale, but these standards also establish significant meaningful buffers from this property to the property surrounding it, again, to ensure that compatibility with that rural character. So let's look at the preliminary plat, and this is just a slightly more detailed drawing than what you've seen before with the legend on there. You can see those two commercial spaces highlighted in red on the east end and the west end. You can see those potential school sites on the north and kind of in the middle there. And the preliminary plat then reflects and carries forward the goals set forth in the PUD by providing a mix of all these residential housing options, the commercial and retail services, hundreds of acres of trails and open space. And you can see in a little bit more detail here how the development is clustered. Where the yellow is, that's where the residential is, and where the green is, that's all the open space. And you can also see on the preliminary plat a little bit more how it follows the natural topography. I think actually the color of those potential school sites is purple on this map, although it's a little hard to see. As mentioned previously, as a conservation community, this project will include hundreds of acres dedicated to parks, trails, and open space that will be open to the public as well as the residents of this community. As such, the PUD will not have any adverse environmental impacts on the surrounding areas or on the land itself. The open space amenities will be designed to follow the natural contours, minimize the amount of grading and land disturbance, and preserve to the maximum extent possible existing habitat and reestablish habitat where it is necessary to disturb it. It will also preserve natural drainage patterns and allow and create natural corridors for wildlife habitat and migration patterns. On this slide, you can see in just a little bit more detail what the trail system is going to look like. Again, these won't be the exact locations of the trails when it's ultimately platted at the final plat level, but you can see generally the regional trails, the red, blue, and purple lines are the regional open space and maintenance trails, which will meander through the community. That will not only provide recreational benefits, but will also facilitate easy access for the residents to parks, amenity spaces, neighborhoods, and commercial uses. And if you can see on this drawing, there are little circles. There's some little yellow circles, some little brown circles, and some little orange circles. And those represent proposed neighborhood parks, pocket parks, and native trail nodes, maybe at the intersection of a trail where there might be some interpretive signage or other trail amenities. As a conservation community, the goal isn't just to create 50% open space and call it good. The goal is to create an integrated system that combines natural habitat and recreational uses with the residential uses and the commercial amenities anchoring this space. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Bruce Lytle from Lytle Water Solutions to provide an overview of the project's previously mentioned and previously adjudicated 300-year water supply and the state-of-the-art water and wastewater reuse system. Yeah, you can have it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Bruce Lytle. It's L-Y-T-L-E. I'm the president of Lytle Water Solutions, and my business address is 12,600 West Colfax Avenue, Suite A, 270, Lakewood, Colorado, 80215. So what I want to go over tonight is the water supply that is available for use at EC West. And obtaining the approvals for the water beneath this property was a little more difficult than usual because the western edge of the Kiowa-Bijou designated groundwater basin runs right through the property. So a portion of this property is outside the designated basin and a portion is inside the designated basin. What that means is that we had to both go to Division I Water Court to adjudicate the Denver Basin water supply outside the designated basin, and then also had to go before the Colorado Groundwater Commission to obtain approvals of orders for the water inside the designated basin. However, all of it now has been approved, has been quantified by both the Water Court and the Colorado Groundwater Commission. So the numbers that you see on the screen here in that middle column under annual allocation are the numbers that have been approved either by the Water Court, which is the top section, or by the Colorado Groundwater Commission, which is the bottom section. And what you see is that the water supply that has been approved as being available beneath the property is 1,796 essentially acre feet per year. Now that number is the statutory water supply availability, because under Colorado water law, everything is based on the total water beneath the property divided by 100 to then come up with an annual allocation. But as we're all aware here in Elbert County, there's the 300-year rule, and so what you see at the bottom of this slide is instead of using that 1,795.9 number, we divide that by 3. So the availability of water under the 300-year rule is almost 599 acre feet per year, which would be the sustainable water supply for this project. So a couple of things that I wanted to emphasize is that, as the last slide shows, that this is a 300-year water supply. It has all been approved by the relevant jurisdiction. And because of the 300-year supply, not all of the aquifers will be developed at the same time. And so all of the initial development for probably 100 or more years will be the deeper aquifers. So that EC West will not be targeting the shallower aquifers, which are generally the aquifers used by local residents when they are on individual wells. And so it's I think an important point that there won't be a hydraulic connection with the EC West Denver Basin wells and most of the surrounding wells that are individual residential wells. One of the most important points about Denver Basin water is that it is statutorily fully reusable to extinction, minus some minor relinquishment requirements. And so because it's reusable to extinction, one of the keystones of the EC West development is that they are pioneering these levels of water reuse and conservation as part of this plan. And so I have one more slide that shows what that really means. So if you start out in the lower left-hand corner, there's going to be some deep Denver Basin bedrock wells that provide first use water only for the homes, okay? So, and the commercial areas, but only indoor demands. So that water gets pumped from these Denver Basin wells, goes through a water purification facility, and that's just to make sure that it meets all potable water supply standards. That water goes into the homes. Most of that water, as you know, doesn't get consumed. The consumption is typically only about 10%. And then the rest of that water, you can see in those brown lines coming out, that water is the wastewater coming out of the home that then goes to the water reclamation facility where that water is treated. And because the water reclamation facility operates year-round continuously, the water that comes out of that water reclamation facility ends up being stored in ponds so that that water then can subsequently be used as in part of a dual pipe system for the irrigation needs on the property. So the irrigation ponds will be sized to hold enough water that during the non-irrigation season that water is held, and then that water is then distributed through what we call the purple pipe system, which is that secondary system for reuse, and that water comes back to the homes, to the commercial areas, to any kind of parks that are being irrigated. So all outside landscaping is done through the dual pipe system, so that the potable demand is only for indoor uses for both residential and commercial, and all outdoor landscaping demands are done through this dual piping system, so that there's a full water reuse system as part of the EC West plan. With that, I'm going to turn it back. I think we're going to talk about traffic.
Good evening. My name is Chris McGranahan. I'm the president and principal of LSC Transportation Consultants, and we were the traffic consultants on this project. What you're looking on the screen is an excerpt from the Elbert County Master Transportation Plan, which was adopted by the county in 2021 and was a guiding document for our study. Listed also is a criteria related to transportation. It says the proposed PUD will not create unreasonable traffic congestion or burden existing road system without improvements. So then we list 3 relatively significant roadway improvements that were done to the west of our project in the last 2 to 5 years by other projects. And then at the bottom there I list CR 174 between CR 21 and 29 is a likely improvement that would be done by adjacent development west of us. So that's another roadway connection that would happen. The next slide. So now we're going to talk about the specific work that we did for this project. We did a traffic impact analysis, a master traffic impact analysis. That showed the build-out analysis coordinated with Elbert County. So we did 2 separate tech memos and 2 separate traffic studies, each further refining the detail to get to an acceptable level where now we have no further comments on the traffic study. We plan to do supplemental studies by phase. Here it suggests 200 to 400 dwelling units per phase. That's just a guess on our part. But those site-specific traffic studies would get into the details of turn lanes, roadway improvements, traffic control, things of that nature. And so at this time, I'd like to hand it back over to Carolyn.
Thank you. We think it's important to provide a little bit of additional context around the residential and housing component of this project. In 2022, Elbert County conducted a housing needs assessment to help inform decision-making and long-term strategic planning for Elbert County around the topic of housing. The assessment recommended various approaches in order to broadly facilitate housing affordability in Elbert County, including, but not limited to, encouraging the private sector to deliver greater housing diversity and greater housing density. This project will help the county achieve those goals by providing a wide variety of single-family detached and clustered single-family attached and multifamily housing, creating a variety of different home sizes and price points. The county currently lacks this housing diversity, and the project presents a unique opportunity to include it. The assessment also found deep housing scarcity with less than 2% availability of housing inventory available for purchase or rent within Elbert County. Even before that housing needs assessment in 2022, the county has recognized the need to diversify its housing stock. A 2009 addendum to the comprehensive plan and some 2018 amendments in the comprehensive plan specifically suggest that larger developments should provide more than one housing type, such as townhouses, patio homes, duplexes, etc. This is exactly the type of diversity provided by EC West. So lastly, we want to talk a little bit about the economic impact that this project will have on the county. And to do that, I'd like to introduce Andrew Knudsen from Economic and Planning Systems.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm Andrew Knudsen. I'm the managing principal of the Denver office of Economic and Planning Systems. Very briefly, about 1/3 of our client base are private developers, 2/3 are public entities like yourself. In most cases, we're working at the intersection between the two, helping communities understand fiscal and economic benefit of developments like what we have tonight. What you see on the slide in front of you right now are the 4 revenue streams that would be directed to the county triggered by this project. The right side of the screen shows the development program, and we've got the full spectrum of the residential segmented by price point, and then we've got the commercial as well. In total, the development program has an estimated $1.7 billion of value at build-out. If you want to hit the next slide, that $1.7 billion then funnels into the county in the form of property tax, sales tax, use tax, and impact fees. Ongoing revenues to Elbert County at build-out are projected to be $4.6 million annually, and those are recurring revenues in perpetuity. The 4.6 is comprised of about 90% property tax, 10% sales tax. The property tax is a very stable revenue source. Sales tax at 10%, we did a very detailed analysis of the expenditure potential within the project and where the dollars from those households are likely to flow. The current Elbert County retail landscape is a bit limited. As the rooftops come up out of the ground, retail will see the opportunity. There will be more retail opportunities, thus reducing leakage from future the households in this development, as well as existing Elbert County households. All this to say, additional revenues to Elbert County. These numbers that you're looking at tonight are thus conservative. We also want to note $5.6 million annually to the school district and the fire district. That also runs in perpetuity, and that's a property tax revenue. Use tax and impact fees are expected to generate $30 million over the course of the project as one-time fees generated at time of permit. On the next slide, we've got a graphic depiction of all of the modeling that we've done. You can see the impact fees and use tax. All of those are one-time at permit. There's quite a bit of revenue right in the bulk of the activity through the absorption period, the 20-year absorption period, and those plateau over time as the project reaches build-out. The sales tax and the property tax grow over time, reaching that $4.6 million you can see in year 2040, and that is a number that runs in perpetuity. The last thing I'd like to mention is that these revenues are a significant boost to Elbert County resources, and that in light of a project that has its own metro district, and all of the infrastructure related to water and sewer are private. Majority of the infrastructure related to roads are private. The impact fiscally to the county is minimal in terms of outlay and significant in terms of revenue expected from these sources that we've identified. Next, I'd like to pass it to Jim Yates, who will provide an overview of how the project will positively impact community services, including school service and fire districts.
Okay, just touching on the primary service providers, we've met with both Rattlesnake and Kiowa fire districts. We have identified locations for land dedication within the community for them if they want to develop facilities, and we'll continue to work with them on that. Currently, both fire districts believe that they can best serve the project from existing facilities. Rattlesnake has just north of us, right at the entrance into Sun Country, and Kiowa has a unmanned remote facility just east down 174. So at this point, they believe that they would use cash in lieu and impact fees to improve those facilities as we grow and as they grow together. The same with school district. We have 2 sites identified within the project. And we'll hold those sites until they finalize their long-term plans. There is a school site on the, I guess it'd be the south end of Sun Country community as well. The school district's very well aware of it. We would not build 2 schools, across the street from each other. They will figure out and kind of drive that direction of what happens to that piece of land, and what if they want cash in lieu for land on our project, or if they want to build the school on the south side of 174. So that's a bit down the road. It's in process. We've been having good conversations with the school district on that side. We've also been working with county staff to determine infrastructure within the community. that will be maintained by our district. Will be the first, I think, large-scale development to enter into agreement to maintain our own internal roads. We gave the option to the county, do they want to own the roads? And at this point, they believe they do want to own them, so we'll have an agreement that will maintain them in that side. Other than that, there are no identified adverse impacts on public utilities and services that won't be mitigated through the implementation of our Metro District imposing fees and property taxes, as well as those taxes and fees are paid directly to the county and the local service districts. With that, I'll turn it back over to Carolyn.
Great, thank you. So now just to wrap it up in the conclusion, as you've seen in this presentation, the application meets or exceeds all of the applicable criteria. So let's just kind of cruise through them really quick. We talked in some length about the comprehensive plan and all the numerous goals and policies of the comprehensive plan that are furthered by this development. The proposed PUD is compatible with surrounding land uses. It reflects similar and consistent development patterns, density and intensity. There will be no adverse impact on the provision of public services. The project will include the Metro District to finance and construct all the necessary public capital infrastructure needs and also to provide ongoing services, and also dedicating land or providing fees to all the other service providers to ensure there's no adverse impact. We also talked about how this is going to be a conservation community and preserve or restore wildlife habitat, will not have adverse environmental impacts. And the proposed PUD will not be adverse to the public health, safety, and welfare. In fact, it will provide a variety of amenities, goods and services, public open space that will benefit the health, safety, and welfare of existing Elbert County residents, as well as the new residents of this development. I might have skipped ahead one. And also, as Chris McGranahan demonstrated with his traffic impact analysis, that the proposed PUD will not create unreasonable traffic congestion or burden the existing road system. Moving on to the conservation community criteria, we've talked a lot about the 50% open space. Obviously, we meet the minimum 80 acres. This criterion describes the nature of the open space, what kind of open space has to be provided in a conservation community. And as you can see, what we're talking about here is very consistent with what the criterion requires in terms of integrated, usable open space, and that it's going to be preserved for wildlife habitat, managed by a special district or a qualifying nonprofit, and so on. And then general compliance with all of the other applicable county regulations and state law. Moving on to the subdivision preliminary plat criteria, we have demonstrated that there is a 300-year sustainable water supply. And we also showed you a little bit about the sewage disposal system that's going to be provided by this property. Together, this is going to be a brand new state-of-the-art water and wastewater disposal system serving this proposed project. Where's my plat criteria? There we go. The plat criteria also talks about identifying hazards and ensuring that the plat is designed to be compatible with and mitigate such hazards. There is a hazard mitigation plan that is part of the application packet. We've also provided the open space and, as mentioned, designed the open space to conform with the topography. The plat also complies with all the requirements in the subdivision regulations and the zoning regulations. And once again, the criterion to comply and further the goals and policies of the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. So that concludes our formal presentation. We thank you for the opportunity to present this to you this evening. Our entire team, not just those who presented, but the others who are here are available to answer your questions at the appropriate time. And we look forward to circling back to speak with you at the conclusion for the final rebuttal and closing remarks. Thank you.
Got an hour and a half. At this time, let's take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll proceed with citizen comments. Okay. You ready? Okay, could we please take our seats so we can get started on the next part of our meeting, please? All right, this next part starts with citizen comments. And what I would ask, if you could all please, we need to, as you come up, and I don't know if we have a sign-up list. Did we have a sign-up list? We do? Okay. They didn't know. They didn't know there was a list. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll get started. Now, I want to go over a few things on our public comment section. If we could all please, as you come to the microphone, to the place there, if you could please state your name, where you live. Be sure the microphone's on so that we can hear you and have it recorded. We would ask that you please limit it to 3 minutes, okay? Now, I know it's going to be close, and we'll let it go a little bit, but please, if you could, try to keep it at 3 minutes. Now, how this is going to work is we're going to take notes on each one of your concerns or your questions or what have you. And then after public comment, what we will do is we will then go to the applicant, staff, and anybody possible to try to get some answers, some rebuttal, what have you, on the questions that you present to us. Okay, this first public comment section will be on the PUD. Correct, Mark? Okay. Now, they all blended together. Once we finish that, we will go into a next public comment on the preliminary plat. So knowing that they'll blend together, I'll address that when we get there. So if we could start, I think the first one on the list is, I see Don Gray.
He was speaking about Excel.
Okay, you're good then? Mr. Gray, thank you. We have Kala Walker? Caleb, please, I'm sorry.
I tried to put the phonetics in there.
Okay.
My name is Kayla Walker, sometimes Kala. I live at 11220 Copper Canyon Circle in Kiowa, just right up the road. I just have a few questions. I know growth is inevitable and it's going to happen, and that's just the way the world works. Elbert County is a rural community. I moved here for the rural lifestyle to ensure my daughter grows up that way and out of the chaos, the hecticness, and the craziness and the confusion of a city as I was raised. So I'm really hoping, because I know, growth will happen, but the people and developers like you guys have proposed, that the rural lifestyle will maintain just in the high density to get more people in, to have more open space, but kind of what is the vision and what would it look like for a townhouse to be rural? Yes, there are neighborhoods, but just curiosity of what the architect would look like to encompass what Elbert County is and what that means to us. Kiowa, when you're wanting to build a town or redo something, they want it to have the architect of the Old West. Main Street Elizabeth has that feel. I'd like to see that incorporated in some of the design works and thoughts, maintaining that feel and warmth of what Elbert County is and what we stand for. And I know there's two sections, so I'll try and, keep it separate. But the next question I have, and I don't have this, my internet is not well loading. What's the proximity of this versus the proposed Excel power line? And do you foresee any conflict with those two projects meeting? And it is a lot for the citizens of Elbert County to be kind of understanding and comprehending both of those at the same time. So kind of, do you guys foresee any issues there? Next is, I know it's going to be phased over time. What does that timeline look like? We didn't cover that. Is it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What does that space look like? And in that timeline, what is the potential of the schools built into that? And if those potential schools aren't put forward and the development areas planned, is there going to be resources for more busing staff to get kids to and from the current existing Elizabeth School District? Also, those potential schools, are they elementary, middle, high school, a combination? What does that look like? The parks, playground, are they going to be just playgrounds, fields? Can you have, pee-wee soccer games, football games, baseball diamonds, tennis courts? Like, what are those kind of sought to be? Is it meant to be just kind of like a lifestyle living with the two villages, or is it a whole community place where everyone can come together and utilize those facilities? Next is the commercial.
Mr. Chair, 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll hurry up. Is it a strip mall, entertainment, movie theaters? What's kind of the visionary of those commercials? And, strip malls, cluster commercial, or big box buildings? Just kind of a visionary there. And then question on the taxes and the projected numbers. Did you guys create a current mill levy in that area, a new mill levy? What were those tax numbers based off of? 2022, projected 2023, because we just, we're in assessed year. So what was that number? And then moving forward, what would that Metro District mill levy look like in comparison to the rest of the county to kind of really equate those tax dollars? That's it. Thank you.
All right, next on the list we have looks like Julie Hoppenberg. Is that correct? Okay.
My name is Julie Snow Kloppenberg. I live at 40500 Bluebell Trail in Elizabeth. However, my parents own 300 acres right off of 174. My questions or concerns are about the rezone process, because it says whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land use. 3 sides are agriculture, and the one side PUD they say is Sun Country, and that is definitely not a high-density housing development. So I'd like to understand how the surrounding land use equates to that. My second question was whether the proposed rezoning would address impact on public services, and the road system is probably number one. The 3 access points onto 174. The website from EC West says they plan to pave a portion of 174. So my concern is all the people going east to the Kiowa Bennett Road. This can create a sandstorm of dust, so that will impact the environment if they're not going to pave the entire thing, and then wait till it snows. That'll be fun. We have not seen any road improvements around the craft development at Independence, so I really feel like the road should be completed first since they're already in like phase 4. 2,850 homes is going to equate to about 5,000 cars. I understand a traffic study, but if anyone has driven 29 or 174, that's going to create a massive problem, and Kiowa Bennett as well. So I really think that roads should be a priority and should be paved first before one stick goes into that subdivision if you approve it. We all know growth is coming, but it needs to be responsible and compatible with Elbert County's right to farm and right to a rural life. So the concern, a subdivision in the middle of a bunch of rural property if the county and people are going to protect our right to farm. Thank you.
Closer, are you having a hard time hearing? Okay, okay. Okay, we'll do that. All right. Okay. Next one on the list, we have Kathy Goodman.
Hello, I'm a landowner.
Yes, if you could state your name, please, and your address.
Okay, my name is Kathy Goodman.
And then if you could pick the mic up, I guess we're having a hard time hearing
Sorry.
folks, so we want to be able to hear you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I own land, 9001 County Line Road 174. And I support this development. I think it's a thoughtful plan from a thoughtful developer with 50% open space for wildlife, trails, conservation. I encourage the approval of EC West.
See, we have a Mr. Steve Valkovron. Don't try it? Okay. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Steve Belsterovich, 38567 Kiowa Bennett Road. I am here in support of both the PUD and the plat, so I'll just keep my comments to both of them right now and not come back. I'm a third-generation Elbert County resident. My dad was a rancher farmer. My mom was a school teacher just up the road for 51 years. The middle school library is named after her. At the 100-year anniversary of Kiowa Schools, probably 500 feet there, when they asked who were students of Mrs. B, about 80% of the room stood up. And my mom still comes out here on weekends and talks to neighbors on holiday weekends. But we talk about the growth in Elbert County. And like the previous witnesses said, it's going to happen. But we need to plan for it. That's what my mom says. We need to plan for it. And when I told her the concept of 50% open space, she is very supportive. She is a big environmentalist, a birder, loves when she comes out here watching the deer go through our meadow. So she applauds this development and wanted to also say we need the economic development here. We have 1.4 million acres in Elbert County, and we have how many roads? We have 851 square miles. We need a property tax base so we can have basic services. For so long, our citizens have suffered because we don't have adequate police protection. We can't have roads. We need some rooftops. And these are the smart rooftops. They're the ones that conserve water. They're the ones that are going to have solar on their rooftops. They won't need the big transmission lines that Excel is trying to push down our throats across the county. This is the way growth should be, and I really ask that you approve it tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have a Rob Koplitz, sir?
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks. My name is Rob Koplitz, 8957 Lariat Loop, which is Sun Country Meadows, Elizabeth. I see a lot of problems with this development. 1,400 acres with 2,850 units, 50% open space. That's averages about a quarter acre per unit. That is in no way compatible with the surrounding land use, as someone previously mentioned, ag on 3 side and Sun Country Meadows on the north side, where the land, the property sizes are from 2 to 10 acres. That will significantly adversely affect the health and safety and welfare of all the people in this area. While there's a lot of smart growth, dark sky, water conservation, things mentioned, I believe that's a lot of lipstick on this project, that the basis of it is just way too many people packed into a small area. I believe that we do need businesses and jobs in the area. As one county commissioner previously stated, you can't buy a 2x4 in this county. That's just because there's not a lot of big businesses around. There's hardly any businesses in this county. And just cramming it full of people and houses is not the best solution. The PUD is a custom zoning for a specific site. Yes, this is a specific site, but it's surrounded by a lot of rural people, rural homes, and horses and animals. And this has nothing to do with the surrounding area. I think it is just totally not compatible with the area. We mentioned that housing scarcity is at 2%. Most people don't come out here to live. I mean, people that come out here to live for a specific reason, if the average house out here is going to cost $500,000 to $750,000, as mentioned in the presentation, that's going to be 2 people in one home working in west of here, Parker, Denver, Castle Rock, wherever. There's going to be 5,000 cars driving down Singing Hills or County Line Road every day, and we know that there's an accident every week on County Line Road at Elbert and that intersection, which they're trying to recreate or repair. I believe that growth is inevitable, and it should happen. It just needs to be planned a lot better, and I implore you to reject this proposal based on the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have okay. Give me some help here.
Looks like, say, Marie Phipps.
Is there a Marie? Okay. I would not have got that out of that.
Well, if you don't understand how I write, you might not understand what I'm saying either. I'm sorry, I have an accent. I'm from France. but I've been living on the Quarter Circle Bell Ranch for 30 years now, and half of that ranch, yes.
Okay, could you please state your name? Did you? Marie Phipps?
Marie Phipps, 41348 Road 29.
Okay, did you get that? Okay, great, thank you.
All right, so now I don't know what I was saying.
Okay.
Anyway, I have a few questions for this gentlemen and ladies. I would like to know why you're still using my address to advertise for everything. 41348 Road 29 is my address, not yours. So I will appreciate that you pick up a road address with your own number, but not using mine. Is that possible? Shall I speak to you or to you about that? I don't think it's normal. The ranch was cut in two, and half of it was sold to you or your mentor, and the other half I kept. And I'm running a cattle ranch over there, and I'm a little puzzled by all the houses which are going to be built, because when you speak of buffers, I mean, you're building them right on my fence line. So what's going to happen when the people who are going to come live there are going to open their window and there's going to be a cow over there? I know I'm going to be in trouble, because those people are not going to want to see and look at cows and smell the cows. So what do we do there? So that's a big problem, because on 3 section lengths, there'll be a lot of houses there. Now, I'd like to understand also why one of my monuments was removed according to our survey, and yours was put 6 feet south, taking 6 feet from my land. 6 feet is not much, but 6 feet on 2,000 feet is a lot of acres, and it's a lot of money. And there's something which is not right there, you know. So I kind of understood that generally when you measure land, you start from the middle of the road. So I guess you start from the middle of 174 and you go all the way there. Well, that didn't apply. I mean, whatever was taken by the road inside was then taken from my place. So I'd like to know, you know, and my monument was even left there. I mean, it's, so I brought it tonight because I think it's a piece for conviction. So now, what else do I have here? So the wildlife, you know, I'm kind of amused because we have deer, we have antelope, we have badger, we have prairie dogs, and we have coyotes. So what are you going to do with all of that? The coyotes are not going to be accepted by the people, you know. So are you going to kill all of them before, as well as the prairie dogs? They're not very nice to have, etc., etc. So I don't think you'll see too much wildlife over there left, you know. And the water, of course, I mean, I'm afraid my water is going to go down your your
Mr.
side,
Chair, 3
because
minutes.
you know, I live very close by, and water is sometimes a problem. So if it's already sometimes a problem for me, it's definitely going to be a big problem when you're going to activate everything. So that's all my concern. And my land is not for sale. Just remember that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have a Mr. Richard Moran.
Richard Moran, 35675 Cheyenne Trail, Elizabeth. I've lived a number of places, a number of states, and from the research that I've done over the last few years, I have been able to find very few places where rooftops generate more revenue than is required of the county. I hear we need rooftops. I don't believe we need rooftops. Rooftops are a liability. Number two, the clustered housing, as has been mentioned, is inconsistent and incompatible with the architecture predominating in this county. I believe that a lot of people fail to see the drawbacks of spatial districts as have been shown in a number of places in Colorado, including Elizabeth. A lot of people don't hear about them, but there are severe financial problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dan Rosales.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here. My name is Dan Rosales. I live at 3672 Deer Creek Farm. And I'm here in support for the program, for the development. The development that Tim Kraft has presented tonight is one of that best mirrors what the people in the Elbert County want and need. The proposed community is offering solutions for roads and traffic. The water is coming from deep aquifers that's avoiding the Dawson aquifers, where most of our people have their private wells, so that the two of them will not be interfering with each other. Then the water conservation with the purple pipe system is going to help to further conserve water. We're looking at open space, which is going to take care of not only the wildlife migration, but it's also going to take care of giving our kids a safe place to recreate, where they can walk their dogs and not have to go into congested areas in Parker and in Denver, where there is no safety. The other thing is it's going to provide commercial space where it's going to be good for people living in the community as well as outside, and we need that. And that commercial space is going to offer jobs that are badly needed in the county, especially startup with our kids graduating from high school and having no place to go, and they're forced to go to other adjacent counties. It's going to offer trade. Each development like this offers trades to 14 different types of jobs, which again is needed in the county. The construction jobs will help. Now here, the issue with rooftops don't pay for themselves, and ultimately they really don't. But if you don't have the rooftops, you don't have the commercial. And I think a lot of people know that jobs and the commercial services that are being offered cannot exist without customers. And rooftops are the customers. The project itself is one that, when you look at economic development, and our county is a poor county, there's three factors that impact it. Education, jobs, and housing. And if you eliminate one of those three, you're not going to have economic development. You can't separate it. They're all combined. So we need to support this, and I hope that you do vote for this development. Thank you.
This time, this was the last individual on the list. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak to the PUD?
Chair, there is a piece of paper and pen there to sign in.
You got it. My name's Tracy Aaron, 11950 County Road 174. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Start my 3 minutes in a minute. Thank you. Basically, I want to reiterate, you know, I know that growth is inevitable. I know development needs to happen. I know a lot of what has been said in support of may in fact be true. I also, we've lived out here for 15 years. I know a lot of people who have lived out here their whole lives, a lot longer. We love our way of life. We love our neighbors and the way things are. It's hard to describe in 3 minutes. Growth is growth, but as someone else said, it's how you do it. It isn't compatible with the surrounding area, like the PUD in Sun Country. 2-acre to 10-acre lots. Cluster housing is not. It's not. Bottom line. I don't want to see our county suffer, but I don't want to see our county suffer by overdevelopment in the wrong way either. I think that there's a lot more to be considered than what's been said here tonight. I think there's a lot of glossy paper on top of facts that haven't necessarily been dug into, things that might not have been considered yet. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had, did somebody else have a hand up out there?
Over there.
Okay, we did, okay. Whoever, somebody come on up.
Hi, my name is Chrissy Howell. I live at 7131 South Shenandoah Drive. That's in Sun Country Meadows, which is going to be adjacent to this property. I've worked for builders prior in my previous lifetime, and they have a tendency to want to eat up the land. That means they're going to build and put something on. I'm sorry. Okay. So previously, I have worked for builders. The tendency for a builder is that they're going to try to eat up every bit of land that they have. The advantage that we have with this particular project is that they're going to maintain a high amount of open space, and it's not just greenery that is mowed and maintained. It's going to be something that is more of a natural scaping. I had discussed with them the potential of interconnecting the bridle paths that we have and enjoy immensely in Sun Country. I have put together 3-hour trail rides, and for us to be able to take advantage of taking our horses and maintaining that rural lifestyle and our Western way of living into this development, I think that's a blessing that we really cannot pass up. These guys are willing to work with us, and if we were to go with larger lot sizes, that's going to eat up the land and the natural scaping and the wildlife refuge that we love to see. So I am suggesting that this be a vote yes, not only because of the open space and the natural living that is going to continue, but our little market that we love, their kitchen shut down. The devastation that every one of our neighbors have had because we can't get our pizza and we have to drive, 25 minutes out to go get pizza. That's gas, that's fuel, that's more road wear and tear. When we can just walk up the road or ride our horse up to get a drink, something like that, I think that's wonderful. So if we can have some more opportunity for that type of thing, I would
Mr.
love
Chair,
to see
3
that.
minutes.
So anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I need to sign in, yes? Okay.
Hi, I'm Bill Howell, and I live at 7131 South Shenandoah Drive, and that's Sun Country. Sun Country Meadows. And first of all, I'd like to kind of go off topic and say that we had some election results come through, and all of the conservative school board members have won. And Proposition HH did not pass. Okay, let me move on. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm here to speak in support of this, the rezoning and the PUD. We live in Sun Country, and I want you all to know that we have a choice to make. And what that choice is, we'd like to maintain our level of services here in the county. There's two ways to do that. And one is through economic development and maybe a little more density in the county, and the other is to raise taxes. So we have a choice to make. We can lower our level of services, or we can keep it right where it is, or even increase that by doing the right thing. And I'm very impressed, and I couldn't ask for more open space. It's more than could possibly be asked for. 50% is a lot. And there's so many different things I'd like to say, but it's getting quite late. But I did want to come out and support this development. I think it's a fantastically planned community, and they've shown to be quite responsible and just a great asset to the county. This is a good group. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, could you sign in, please? Yeah, thanks.
My name is Jo Basnardo, and I'm at 1949 South Uray Street in Aurora. My question is, you've considered the natural resources. Did those include the mineral rights for people who own those mineral rights? And what happens if you develop and concrete those people who own mineral rights?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else? Sir, please.
My name is Sebastian Gruner. I live on 43073 Saddlehorn Drive, Sun Country Meadows. There are very few people that probably live closer to this development other than my next door neighbor. We are literally the last house from the corner. So we are mostly concerned about traffic. Traffic coming in and out of there is already quite packed most of the time. I think most of these people will actually head down the Singing Hills Road. I think very few people will go the Southlands Road. So I think the majority of that traffic will head that way. And I really don't see how this is feasible then to widen that road into a two-lane road in each direction. As everybody else said, I think growth is inevitable. I'm kind of on the fence about this. I like some points, I dislike some points. Another problem is water. I'm no expert on water whatsoever. I do know that a lot of my neighbors in the neighborhood had to re-drill their wells, so there's some in the 400-foot range because they're literally running out of water out there. I'm not sure how far it will trickle down when you start sucking that water from the very bottom, if the upper and the lower dorsal will just literally get sucked down. I'm no expert in that. That's a concern of mine. My third concern is the school. I live literally across from the parcel that's reserved by the county. That's 40 acres. I didn't move out into the country pretty much 25, 30 minutes from everywhere to live across the street from a school. If I wanted to do that, I would have moved into the city. I don't think that's really the type of life that we're all looking for out there. We like our rural community. I do appreciate the 50% greenery out there. I think that's a really good effort. The clustered homes, I don't know. I don't think they really fit into the neighborhood. As we said, everything else is very agricultural and rural. Half-acre lots. I mean, most of my neighbors have 2 to 4 minimum. The diverse housing. I'm on the fence about it, just because we do need more affordable housing out there, because most of our neighbors that actually work in the little store can't afford to live there. The problem that I have for that, if you look at Parker, that have built a lot of affordable housing, for like very affordable housing, they started opening that up. Within 3 months, we had 2 shootings and a stabbing. That's not what I want out there. So I think there should be a very good compromise somewhere. Where exactly that is, I can't tell you, otherwise I'll be sitting over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Did he sign in? Okay. Okay, good. All right.
All right. My name is Jacob Marsh. I live at 7142 Sun Country Drive. Been out there since 2014. I ran the little market at the beginning of our neighborhood for about 1.5 years. I own my small business, water solutions, sprinkler, and landscape right now, and doing quite well. I'm actually pretty much in support of this plan, and I hope it moves forward with the presentation that we saw today, the biggest thing being the open space and the commercial. I know for a small business, having to get things in town and driving all the way in town to acquire things, it would be nice to get stuff closer to home. like someone said, the pizza kitchen closed. It was very nice to have that right there. And so if the development is going to intermingle some mom and pop type things, of course, I wouldn't like to see, McDonald's go up or anything like that, but some type of mom and pop shop where they offer food, services, that would be amazing, especially out there where we don't have to drive 20 to 30 minutes to get something like that. But overall, I think the plan is well thought out. The water reclamation system is a plus, is a very big plus. And yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Linda Krausert, 44683, Lariat Trail, Elizabeth, and I'll be right back. I'm up here to say that I'm in total support of the entire craft team. I've worked with them very closely the last several months. Sorry about my voice. I've been in Elbert County 32 years. I've seen a lot of growth. I've heard of a lot of people complaining. I'm head of HO8 in Sun Country Meadows. People will come in and their biggest fear is change. No one likes change. We all know that. They're fearful. They hear rumors. I call the people on computers, the computer keyboard pirates. They don't have the, I'll say, guts to come in here, face you and face you. You guys are doing a fabulous thing. I am seasoned. I'm not 40 anymore. I have 4 acres. I take care of it. Can I do that in the next 5 years? And I hope to be around for the next 20 years because Elbert County people live to be old, right? So with that being said, that maybe I could sell my property, my little 4-acre oasis, and move to one of these places and not have to leave Elbert County because I don't want to leave Elbert County. We came out here 32 years ago from Arvada. We bought 40 acres. My husband became ill. We had to downsize, and where I'm going now, I'm going to have to downsize again. We can't do that without doing something like what the craft team is doing. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on up.
Sorry, I had to ride uphill.
Okay.
My name is Stephen Spar. My address is 7813 County Road 174. We're going to address the impact that the subdivision here may affect me. I've already had one impact because of Core Electric going to run electric transmission line right down 174. Now they're talking about putting the subdivision to be basically a high-density type subdivision with the number of cars it's going to be using 174 because there's 3 entrances to it. We can't even get the road plowed or graded because of the oil companies going down it constantly. So the road is deteriorating every week, every day, and also the road is used as pretty well used for people going to work from Sun Country. It's bumper to bumper, so to speak, going and coming home. It's pretty active too. The impact is tremendous amount of dust. If the wind's just right, I hear it from my wife constantly, having to dust the house because of the dust that's generated from many cars going down. So the impact is also impacting me. My 200 acres is not as big as Mrs. Phipps. I used to work with their ranch when I was a young man, and her part of the ranch borders mine. So we've been neighbors since when we came to Elbert County in 1960. I learned to drive on the dirt roads, the washboardy roads, Singing Hills, County Line Road, all the way into Aurora. So change is coming, yes, but it needs to be looked at a little more thoroughly. I think the high density housing might be a negative. I might add, I was on the Lower Dawson Aquifer since 1976, and it went dry in 2019. I had to go down to the next aquifer and spent over $28,000 just to get another well so I had water. So I still think there's an issue with water that may affect me in the future, so I want to voice that as a impact that I think needs to be carefully considered. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, what we'll do, we'll close public comment on the PUD, and then what we'll do, we'll go right into public comment on the preliminary plat. I would ask that this isn't an opportunity to repeat, okay, what was said initially. We have notes on everything that was brought to our attention, and we're going to get some answers and hopefully discuss most, if not all, the things on the list. So, if there's anybody who has specific comment on the plat, could you please? I think that's, do you, sir? Same conditions apply, if you could, please.
Jacob Marsh, 7142 Sun Country Drive. The only thing I wanted to talk about the plat was the school placement. If you guys really can, keep it on your side, that would be great. And maybe talk to the school for the land use or whatnot, for some type of rec center, or something that both communities maybe can use or whatnot. But I think with school traffic, I know our side on Saddlehorn, I don't believe it could be widened or anything like that. So the traffic impact on just on our side with a school there, I think would severely impact the community. So yeah, if you guys could keep that on your side, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So, at this time, we'll close public comment. The reason we did 2 sections of public comment, because we have to do individual votes on each of these parts. We have to do a specific vote on the PUD, and we have to do a vote on the plat. So, we're not ready for that yet, but however, that's why we need to offer everyone the opportunity to ask questions on both sections. That's the reason for aligning with process. So at this point, we've closed public comment, so where we'll be is if we could ask the developer, please, if you folks could. We have a number of things that were brought up in questions, and things if you could help address, maybe kind of cover some of those concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, Carolyn White, Land Use Council for the developer. If I might request just a 5-minute break while we organize our notes, it might make our responses be a little more coordinated.
Good thought, thank you. Okay, please do.
Thank you, sir.
Let's do a 5-minute break. There we go. It sounds better. Okay, so here's where we're at. Public comment was complete. Where we ended was we asked the applicant and staff if they could cover the things that were brought up during citizen comments. So this is the time when hopefully you can answer the questions and some of the concerns that you have on what was brought forward. So if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, county staff, members of the public. Once again, Carolyn White, Land Use Counsel for the applicant. We have sort of three broad categories of notes that we took. The first one is traffic, the second one is water, and the third one is compatibility. And under that heading, we have a couple of subparts thinking about things like parks, schools, rural character, and so on. So that's the order in which we're going to respond, and I'll start by handing the microphone to our traffic engineer, Chris McGranahan, to address the questions and concerns about traffic.
Thank you, Caroline. So I'd like to explain again what we did quickly. We did 2 technical memos, which the sole purpose of those technical memos was to get on the same page with county staff on what land use, what trip generation, what distribution of traffic, what intersections are we going to look at. The reason we did that is we knew this was going to be a large traffic study, so we didn't want to have just submit a several hundred-page traffic study with no coordination. So we went through a very extensive process coordinating with staff on these technical memorandums to come up with this master traffic study that has been accepted by the county and will be our template moving forward to appease the concerns or to address the concerns of the neighbors. This project's going to be developed in phases over many years, most likely 200 to 400 units at a time. The county will require us to update our traffic study and probably do a more specific, more detailed study for that phase. And that will direct staff, us, our client, everyone on what the most appropriate mitigation would be for the impacts at that time. So we'll use our master traffic study as a template, and we'll update studies, every few years for each phase. And so we feel like that's going to be the best way to move forward. We have a master study to set the template, and then we do phase-by-phase studies over the years to help the county determine what our appropriate mitigation would be. And so that's what I would say is our appropriate answer. We planned appropriately, and we're going to move forward and revisiting the impacts as we go. Standards change, times change. This is going to be a long project, so we could see multiple traffic studies over several years.
I'll now hand the microphone over to Bruce Lytle to speak to the water issues.
Good evening again, Bruce Lytle. So the issues that I heard were related to either the wells at EC West would directly affect some of the adjacent wells, and or if the wells are deeper at EC West, there's the potential to move water vertically down to the EC West wells, thereby drying up these wells. So let me first just talk a little bit about the geology and the hydrogeology of the Denver Basin. So the Denver Basin was created through the uplift of the Rocky Mountains and them shedding sediments, and so everything in the Denver Basin was laid down as erosion off of the mountains, and so it's all been laid down on these horizontal layers. And because there have been different episodes over millions of years, the Denver Basin is a very, what we call, interbedded system, where you have water-bearing sandstones, but they're interbedded with low permeability shales. And so because of that, water movement in the Denver Basin is virtually entirely horizontal. It's going to move horizontally through these water-bearing strata. And a good example, and so because of that, you don't get any vertical communication. So when you drill a well, the water comes horizontally into these wells. It does not move vertically. And with the EC West, the plan is to not develop the Lower Dawson aquifer as an initial step in this 300-year supply. It's to go to the deeper aquifers, the Denver and the Arapahoe. And because of that, the highest water producing zone in those two aquifers, which is the Denver, is going to be somewhere around 900 to 1,000 feet below ground surface. And so a Denver well will be sealed for that 1,000 feet, all the way from 1,000 feet down, all the way to ground surface. The Arapahoe is going to be sealed from about 1,800 feet continuously all the way to ground surface. And so they're going to be hydraulically isolated from these shallow residential wells. So there will not be any hydraulic communication between these wells. And we know this for a fact because I've drilled wells all over the Denver Basin, and the most efficient way to drill wells in multiple aquifers is to cluster them at a site so that you have a Dawson well next to a Denver well, next to an Arapahoe well, next to a Laramie Fox Hills well, all within probably 100 feet of each other. And when you pump those wells, if you pump an Arapahoe well, it doesn't affect the Denver, it doesn't affect the Dawson. And that's the plan here too, is to have limited well sites with multiple wells on that. And obviously we would not recommend that, nor would EC West or the craft companies want wells like that if they were interfering with each other, because it'd make for the least efficient water supply. But because they are hydraulically isolated, it becomes the most efficient supply, because then you can manifold those wells right into a water treatment plant and you don't have a lot of extra pipeline. So I think that that our experience all across the Denver Basin is that you do not see vertical communication between these wells. In fact, the state engineer is very adamant about permitting of these wells, that you have to stop. If you're in the Denver, you have to stop before you get up into the Dawson so that you get that continuous grout seal, so you're isolating the Denver from that overlying Dawson aquifer. So it's my professional opinion there will not be hydraulic communication, nor will there be any injury to these shallower residential wells. I think I'll hand it back to Carolyn.
Okay, thank you. And then in the last category, under compatibility, there are a couple specific questions that I'm kind of putting together under that. And so I want to talk about schools, parks, mineral interests, and the general issue of compatibility and rural character. So a couple questions were asked about the schools, whether these sites were appropriate locations, whether the developer could influence the location or get the school district to choose one location versus another. Is it going to be a middle school or an elementary school or a high school? And is there enough capacity in the schools to accommodate all the new students that might be generated from this project? As Jim has mentioned, and he may wish to elaborate on this, there have been ongoing discussions and dialogue with the school district throughout this project from the beginning. And in fact, those sites as originally proposed were modified somewhat in order to accommodate the desires of the school district. But the school district, of course, has its own formulas for projecting student generation rates and for determining at what trigger point they require additional school facilities and what their additional needs are. And so we don't have to guess what they might need and try to fold that into the project. We have to reserve a site for them, and they 100% get to decide, would we rather have a site or would we rather have fees in lieu? And what size site do we need, and is it going to be a middle school or a high school or whatever? And all that is the school district's ultimate decision. That said, these dialogue has been ongoing and will continue to be ongoing, and until the point when the school district says they don't need or want those sites, they will be reserved for a potential school site. And at some point, they will make a choice and determine exactly what, if anything, they want to build there, and if not, that they would rather have the fees in lieu. So that's really the answer on the school district. We have, the developer has done everything possible to accommodate whatever the needs might be and will be providing for the services or the facilities one way or the other. But the school district will make the ultimate decision about what its needs are and how best this development can meet them. That's the school issue. On the mineral issue, mineral notice was provided to all mineral holders as required by the state statute and by the county regulation. So letters were sent out to all the owners of any mineral interest that we could find by doing the appropriate research under the statute, and told them, hey, there's going to be a hearing on this date and another hearing on this date, and if you want to come and ask questions, please do. And so that was complied with as required. And, you know, so far we've not had a ton of conversation, although we've had some conversation with some of those owners. The project will be able to accommodate the mineral interests, and no harm will come to the mineral interest as a result of this PUD or this plat. I'll just say that. And in terms of specifically what each of them might need or want, those will be, you know, individual accommodations and negotiations and conversations that will be held. So that's the mineral issue. And then a couple questions were asked about the parks and amenities. What kind of parks are there going to be? What programming are you going to have in each park space? Will there be ball fields? Will there be playgrounds? Will there be soccer fields? Whatever. And that level of detail will be provided on a final plat by final plat basis, just like with the traffic, as Chris McGranahan was saying. So, you know, this will come forward in individual smaller bites of roughly 200 to 400 units each, and each one of those will show which parks are going to be developed in that particular plat, and each one of those will show specifically what programming will be included with that. We did show you a map of a general conceptual plan that showed there will be a certain number of regional parks and a certain number of pocket parks and a certain number of trail nodes, and they'll be roughly distributed throughout the development, but the precise programming for each will be determined as each final plat comes forward. But it will be public. It will be open to the public. That was the other question that was asked, whether, you know, the public can access those amenities, and absolutely they can. They'll be owned, operated, and maintained by the Metropolitan District. So those were the parks, schools, and mineral interests. And then just generally on the issue of compatibility, density, and rural character, a couple comments about that. First of all, compatibility does not mean the same as. In fact, the definition of compatibility is when two things which are not the same can nonetheless coexist in harmony next to each other. And so the code really recognizes this. When you did the housing needs assessment, you said, we really need more diversity of housing types, meaning we need smaller housing products, we need attached housing products, we need smaller lots. And the code also said, we're going to have this conservation community type of development in which we're going to say that houses are going to be clustered together. They're going to be surrounded by large-scale open space. And when you read the housing needs assessment along with the PUD regulation and the conservation communities, it leads you directly to what EC West is trying to provide here. That's how you can get housing density and diversity and still maintain the rural character. And the way you do that is, first of all, I think maybe when some people are talking about having attached housing or townhomes or duplexes, they might be thinking of a more urban product where you have very large developments with 1,000 units or more altogether. But if you look at the map, these are going to be clustered in these small villages, and you're not going to have thousands and thousands of homes all in a row in that kind of visual that I think some people might be thinking of. With the clustered conservation community layout and design, you will have these homes in a very manageable small grouping, and they'll be in the interior for the most part of the property with large open space buffers around the perimeter and weaving through the interior. So that's how you can achieve the type of density and diversity of housing types that are specifically asked for in the code and in the housing needs assessment, and still maintain the rural character of the surrounding area. So I think those were the main things that I was wanting to address. Jim, do you want to add anything?
Mark, can we put our map back up? I think you've got to activate the connection.
Yeah, we'll pull up a map here, one moment.
That's perfect. That one's good. So if I could ask you to turn around and look at that map, I'm going to just point to a couple things real quick. Maybe not. So again, this whole area here, you know, basically along 174, pretty significant. And, you know, the scale's hard to see, but really not much activity along these. These access points onto 174 here, the two smaller legs, really are secondary access points. So the primary traffic that comes out of the community will be here on 29 and then here on 174, you know, going west. As Carolyn touched on, a couple other things. We really only needed to dedicate one school site. We sat down with the superintendent. We've met with different board members. They are leaning, I don't know if Jacob's still here, towards, you know, this school site here, as opposed to the one that I think is right about there, roughly, maybe there, that is in Sun Country. That school site was dedicated a long time ago. It was not a part of us. We don't have control over what they're doing, but we are having conversations with them about really providing insight internal to our community, the two school sites. I can't tell you what they will do with the existing Sun Country school site. That's kind of, again, their prerogative of what to do on that. I think the last thing really is, again, just to emphasize, when we talked about duplexes or townhomes, we will design product that will fit in this community. This isn't, again, a big sea of townhomes. These are smaller buildings. They're 2, 3, 4 unit buildings. They're separated. They're not going to be in rows and rows of buildings. That's not what would sell out here. I mean, at the end of the day, the market's going to be something that maybe is a smaller product. We've got a lot of like cottage and patio home type product, ranch product, or main floor master product. Those are the things that people who are downsizing will look for. They're not looking to live in a huge apartment community or complex like that. And then the last thing on the amenities, our amenities, at least as how we have planned these, are open to the public. So we're not, these aren't neighborhood pools or things that would be meant for, certain neighborhoods or certain villages. They are gathering spaces, just similar to what we've done at Independence. It's kind of a larger gathering area where people can get together.
We're happy to answer any other questions that came up that we didn't cover. We'll let staff obviously answer as well, but those are the main ones we wrote down.
Okay, if we could do a couple things here. As we went through road improvements in the area, can you go over what improvements are slated? And I get it, you're going to be going through this process. The other thing was, this build out, I think you mentioned in there is a 20-year timeline, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that each time you do a separate filing, okay, when you go through the filing, each one of those filings will come before this county.
Correct, both Planning Commission
and the board. And in each one of those filings, you'll have to produce separate traffic studies for each one of those, correct?
That's correct. The only way that works is at whatever point in time. If we take one in tomorrow, it'll look at the background traffic tomorrow plus our impact. If we take it 5 years from, and that's why we can't perfectly project it, 5 years from now, they'll look at whatever background traffic is there, other communities plus or minus, and then our impact of that plat. So each
they're going to be
one's updated.
analyzing the traffic that's created from what you've currently expanded.
What we would propose to bring in, correct.
Okay. Now, that was one thing I wanted kind of people to understand, that this traffic study is based on, projections, but each time they come forward with something, they'll have to redo all this. So the other thing is, what road improvements are set, because they talk about a lot of dust, but I want them to go over that.
Yeah, I want them to go over it too.
So if you could go over what improvements are are included in your,
Phase 1.
yes.
So the ones that we believe we know for sure at this point are on 29 in front of our entrance, and then on 174 up to, the eastern end of our project. We don't know at this point how much traffic is going to continue to go east. At this point, there isn't a lot of need, I'll say, to go east. For the most part, that we believe the traffic will go west. In order to go west, currently you have to go to 29, either go north or south to go west. There is another project on 174 just on our western border that if they come through, then we believe 174 could continue west straight up and connect to 178.
Okay. Okay, let's see if,
Secondary question or follow-up?
well, what I'm doing, I'm trying to cover all the questions that people asked.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go to each one of us, and then we can have our opportunity to ask the questions. But what I'm trying to do is cover all the questions that everybody asked out there.
All right.
So, and I'm going down through here. Parks and playgrounds, you covered that. Commercial property. There was a question on commercial, what that would be.
Yeah, well, one way you can determine what that's going to be is you look at how much commercial space is set aside here.
That's
right. So the question was, is it going to be small scale retail? Is it going to be big box?
Right.
By definition, typically a 100,000 square foot big box needs about 20 acres. There's no single 20-acre site that could accommodate. I mean, if you did a big box, you'd have no other commercial in the whole development. So that's definitely not the primary vision here. But, it's really going to be very market driven by what the goods and services are that are needed by this community. There are a variety of different commercial types of uses that are authorized in the PUD, from small mom and pop shops to businesses and offices. And it's really, the vision is not strip mall and it's not big box. It's a more of a town center, kind of community center.
Okay.
That's the vision, but exactly what businesses are going to be, we can't tell you at this time.
No, but you kind of, I think, answered the question of what people were wondering. Are you going to bring any big box stores in there? And you did. You answered it there. There was a comment in here on special districts, which I think we will be discussing those in the service plan.
That is correct.
Okay. Special districts will all be covered in the next section of this. So if you're interested in that, you're going to hear a lot about districts, special districts, and how they're funded, the process, and what they're for. So if we could, wait for that for answers. Traffic water. Okay. At that point, I think all the notes that I took based on what people had requested, had asked, I think is covered. Hold on. Okay, now what we're going to do is at this point, it turns into a question and answer thing for our group, for the Planning Commission. So we're going to go around the table and we'll start down there at the end. Whatever, who wants to go? Okay, good. All right.
I think the concern with the property line dispute needs to be addressed before we move forward, or at least commented on and give us an idea how that will be addressed and resolved.
So we've gone through title and survey searches, and there was a dispute, I think, when the property was divided, but when we purchased it, it is what it is. We're very happy to meet with Ms. Phipps again and talk to her about that. It's not something that is an issue for us.
So it didn't sound like it would be an issue for you. It sounded like it was
an
issue for
meaning,
her, and somebody pulled her pin. So that is a concern, I think, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, understand. So we're going to have to sit down and meet with her, but that's not, if you run title search, if you look at all the surveys, all of the information, that supports where the line's at. We did not pull the pin. That I don't know what happened with that, but we currently let her graze her cows on our land. It's not, at this point, there's not, the ranch is still kind of fully available.
Well, there could be adverse possession laws that take effect there as well, too.
Understand, yeah. Thank you.
That's all I had on that.
Okay, start questions. Who wants? Go around the board here.
That was one big one I had. Yeah, that issue is a big issue for me, that's resolved. I'm okay about that.
Mr. Chair, microphone, please.
Thank you. That issue is a big issue for me as well, and I'll take you at your word that you could come up with a good resolution for her and her properties. It's your plan that, well, I'm not going to tell you what I think you're saying. How about you tell me again exactly what you are talking about with 29 and 174, then you're talking about moving that to connect up with 178 after there was a huge issue at the county that we were supposed to do 174 in the first place, and then we didn't. We did 178, and now we got 178 going through. And so is that your plan to butt up against, to join up with 174 to join up with 178?
So my comment was, we have in our plan 174 along this stretch to 29. We would improve 29, and that would take people either north to County Line or south to Singing Hills.
Singing Hills.
Okay.
There is another project right here. If that project comes online, then 174 could open up from 29 going west. It currently does not exist. It is not our property. That is incumbent upon this other development that has brought in an application. So it's now part of the master traffic plan, or what they're looking at. That is not a part of us.
Great. Okay, that's good for me to get that cleared up because I was concerned. You cleared up the water issue that I had, so in the development itself, it says you're going to maintain the roads, but the county wants to own the roads, but the district is still going to take care of them within the development. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have a development agreement that has been drafted, and as a part of going to the Board of County Commissioners, a piece of that agreement would codify the maintenance of the roads. So the roads will be handled basically the same as they have been, meaning we will build them and then dedicate them to the county. There's a warranty period. But then the maintenance at our project, internal, would be for our district to maintain. And that's a little bit of a reference back to the comment about houses don't pay for themselves. One of the biggest drains for the county is road maintenance. And so by that piece of it not being on the county's dime, so to speak, is a big balancing factor for that.
I see, okay. All right, Thank you. That's me.
You good? Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I got a couple quick questions. As far as the signage and the posting, just real quick, we'll touch on that. If there was access, 3 access points on 174, 1 access point on 29, I only saw 1 sign on 74, or 174. Was that the requirement by the county, was just 1 sign?
There are 3 signs
Really?
on one, at each of the 3 legs along there, correct?
I drove it twice and I saw 1 sign, period. So I don't know. So I was curious why at least 1 more sign wasn't posted on County Road 29. I drove it twice recently. So I don't know where they're at.
We taking pictures. They're on, obviously on the south side of 174. You have to go all the way past State Land Board property. So it's quite a bit east down to get to number 2. And number 3 is all the way past Robinson Brick. So it's almost...
I almost drove all the way to Kiowa Bennett Road.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I was just curious. That was just
Okay.
that was one question.
Understand.
One of the things that you mentioned was there was a minimum and a maximum density in residential housing. There's a 910 unit difference between the minimum and maximum. Why is there such a big difference?
So the primary reason is how much, what the market will bear and how much density or how much clustering, will the market be able to absorb. That when we worked with county staff last year, they really typically I wouldn't put a minimum in, you just kind of have a cap and, deliver what the market will bear. The county really wanted to ensure that we had a minimum floor just around 2,000 units that, encouraged us to at least bring some of these diverse housing types and a little bit of that density.
And then I noticed the preliminary plat identifies proposed modifications to the floodplain. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I cannot.
No, that's okay. Good evening. My name is Brian Hart. I'm the civil engineer for the project with Redland. And you're correct. Kiowa Creek tributary does have an existing floodplain. It's within Village 2, so we anticipate that that's several years away. The way that we would treat that is we do, and actually from a planning standpoint, we really kind of tried to stay hands-off and actually treat the tributary as an amenity. We might have trails nearby, but we will have road crossings, and that by definition will change the floodplain. We would be required to go through what's a conditional letter of map revision, and then once construction is done and plans are approved, then we would actually go through a letter of map revision that gets approved through FEMA. So there's a pretty well-established process on how you not only design for it and plan for it, but construct it and then get it accepted later down the road.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I had another question in regards to a buffer. There is a core easement, I believe it was on the north corner on 174 there, and there was a easement there. So the lot lines were going to be pulled back up to the easement, and then no buffer because of the easement. So can you explain exactly where that is and what that would look like then if there wasn't going to be a buffer? Because I don't know what that core easement looks like. So I was wondering what you envisioned that would look like.
Yeah, so there is a substation kind of up in this corner, I'll call it the northwest corner of the intersection, and they are connecting a line down 174 to another substation down close to the creek. We are working with Corps to provide an easement along here on basically our 3 legs. And that easement is probably more extensive than typical because of one of the topography, and that when 174 gets redone, it's going to have to be regraded. It's not at current code today. So with that, we had to try to figure out where their poles were going to go and give them, I'll say, a wide swath of room. All those are coming down on the south end, the south side of 174. In addition to that, we have quite a bit of buffer that's not a part of that easement along 174. And again, these other two legs more to the east, they really are not going to have activity other than a road going up to them. So I don't know if that answered your question. As far as
So no buffer, it doesn't sound like, between the easement.
there's a buffer that's not a part of the easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah. Yeah, this, and it's kind of hard to see with the scale. What you see as this buffer here is starting at the end of the easement coming into the property. It's not part of the easement.
Okay. Last question. You guys have no intention of forming an HOA, but who would that responsibility fall on if there was to be an HOA?
So to form an HOA, we would have to allow it. We are intending to run all of the internal maintenance and activities and support through our metro district as opposed to an HOA. Okay. And the reason for that is we'll have a district that is an overlay district that covers the whole property. So again, we won't have neighborhoods that have their own private pools or things like that in there. It is possible, and we could we could create a gated neighborhood, for example, and set an HOA up to pay for the guard and the gate and certain other things, but that's not what we're intending to do.
Okay. That's all the questions I had for now.
What you got? There you go.
So in regards to the traffic, a number of the neighbors were talking about the dust and everything. Could you describe a little bit more about what the upgrade would be associated with both 174 and 29, to help, abate dust and what the traffic would cause on a dirt road?
Just ask them if they're paving it or not. Yeah. What?
Chris McGranahan again with LSC. Yeah, maybe could you repeat that? I want to make sure I get this right.
Well, in looking at your traffic study, there's the gap, and we understand that there will be ongoing traffic studies, as the phases are being built out. So you have recommendations for 2027, and then you have your secondary recommendations for 2045. What are you going to do in the meantime as the construction, as homes are sold and so on? What are the plans for 29 and 174, so people understand what's going to occur out there, so that they're not dealing with dust, they're not dealing with road destruction, as the community is built out.
Thank you. Yeah, the master traffic study assumes build out of everything. So we're talking about full cross sections improved, turn lanes, traffic control improvements. The types of things you're talking about with, does a road need paved? Does it need widened? Are we going to do the full improvements? Are we going to do a baby step, or maybe baby step 2 or 3? That will all be included in these future site-specific studies. So our first study, let's say it's for 300 units. At that time, we'll look and see what's the existing traffic on the gravel section of 174. What are we adding to that? Does the county or any of their staff feel that that would be an issue as gravel? Like, it may be that we don't need to pave the road for a volume standpoint, but there may be something that needs to be done for dust control. But we wouldn't know that until we get into that future site-specific study. What we've done now is we did a master traffic study to make sure that everything that needs to be done to mitigate the project can be done. How we accomplish that is determined through all these studies over time. Hopefully that makes sense. So that first site-specific study, we'll be looking at things like what you just mentioned. Like, is the gravel an issue, or does it need to be paved? Do we need a turn lane? Do we need a a traffic signal somewhere.
All right. You addressed the property issue. There was a question about setbacks in general. What kind of setbacks are you going to have with the homes as compared to adjacent properties? Is there a general philosophy for that?
Well, first I'll just mention that the setbacks are customized for this PUD, and they're set forth in the PUD document, and I might be remembering wrong, I think it's sheet 6 or 7 in the PUD document, where there's a table that shows all the setbacks for each of the different types of uses.
Okay.
But I think what you might be asking about is more the setbacks of this development from the surrounding properties, not from
Correct.
each other internal to the development.
Correct.
And for that, what you're really looking at is you can really see on this graphic where the open space areas are, and almost all of the surrounding properties are touched primarily by open space. And I say almost, not all. There are some areas where there is development immediately adjacent, and those setbacks will be governed by the setbacks in the PUD, depending on which, type of use each one of those lots is.
Okay. Last question. So there was a couple of comments from some of the individuals that live in Sun Country in talking about improving the coexistence between the, if you want to say, the two PUDs, trails and so on. What is going to be the general plan associated with that? Are you going to be able to provide that based upon the fact that you have to cross 174? And with the increased traffic, what are going to be the ideas to be able to support that?
Yeah, so we are in the service area for Elizabeth Park and Recs, but we're not included in their district yet, and that happens when we go through this process. We have been working with them on how to connect with trails regionally. That's a great question. We are open to connecting equestrian trails up to our boundary. I don't know how those crossings look. That's not something that we've studied yet as far as equestrian specific crossings. But we're very open to that. I know that they're also, they being Elizabeth Park and Rec, to the northwest, they are developing some other trails in that area across the northwest corner of 29 and 174. And we have said, we're very happy to, provide trailheads or connections into that. Once we leave our property, we don't have as much control.
All right, very good. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I have a couple quick comments and then a couple of questions. The first quick comment is, maybe you should join in a partnership with that other applicant and continue to build out 174 across to 178. Because the way I look at this, I'm seeing 1,000 cars being dumped onto Singing Hills in the next 5-10 years. Singing Hills will be at a crawl. And so 174 to 178 to me is a much better option. So please work with those guys as best you can. So that was comment number one. Couple quick questions. How are you hoping to achieve the dark sky? And did you agree on the 20-foot wide trails, the setbacks on the trails to be 20-foot wide?
I'll address the dark sky first. So in our other project in the county, Independence, we have, a plan that is dark sky compliant. It does light certain intersections. We do have street lights along certain types of roads and intersections. And that's basically the model that we would follow. There are standards for the type of lighting that go on houses. There's obviously standards for the LED downward directed lighting versus kind of the more diffuse luminescent lighting that's or fluorescent lighting that is kind of more old style. And so there are some guidelines that we will follow that'll be, I think, very similar to what you would see in Independence. As far as the easement was 20? Yeah, so we are complying with the 20-foot easement on the trails. The trails are not 20 feet wide, but the easement
Okay,
is,
good.
yeah.
And so the last question is I guess a little comment first. Thank you for providing 4,100 pages of documentation. The thud factor was very high on this one, so thank you.
We have
thank you for
more.
not printing those.
We have more that we can provide.
Please don't. It's bad enough as it is. On page 793 of this, I was digging through, trying to find the agreement somewhere that basically said the state agreed with the 300-year water plan. And I really don't see that anywhere. On 798 is where it comes in and says, okay, so we're going to have to form the Metro District in order to get to the 300-year plan. It sounds like you don't have an agreement yet. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is correct. The latest letter from the state engineer's office does not agree with a couple of the points that we believe are incorrect. Probably the biggest one is their contention that you can't get credit for an augmentation plan that's based on a 100-year supply, which is the only way that you can get a decree in water court is based on a 100-year supply, because that's the statutory construction of an augmentation plan. And I don't quite understand why they're saying that because this is a 300-year supply, you can't get credit for that. So I think that there's a couple of points in the state's letter that we probably need to sit down with them and go over, because I think that they're kind of grossly misinterpreting the water court decree that we have.
So help me out. How does the Metro District get you to that 300-year plan? I don't think there's a true tie-in there. I think it's basically just a step in the path to get to the agreement for the 300-year plan. Is that accurate?
Well, the other thing that I would add to what Bruce said is that the reason the Metro District has a role to play is in order to actually deliver the supply of water, we have to construct the infrastructure, particularly the water quality and reuse system that was described earlier during the presentation. And because that's going to be constructed by the Metro District, which doesn't yet exist because the county hasn't yet approved it, because that's coming up next, the Metro District cannot officially say, yes, we, the Metro District, are going to build these things because it doesn't exist yet. So what we're saying is,
basically.
What's that?
You're betting on the come, right? You're basically saying the state is going to agree once you have the Metro District in place and you have these allocations in place so that you can actually show the augmentation, show how the water basically feeds back in and you get to that higher number.
Yes, and the requirement is that the party delivering and providing the water supply has to own the water rights. Right now, the developer owns the water rights. We can't transfer them to the district because the district doesn't exist yet. So that's the other link in the chain that will be closed once the Metro District is formed. So that's why we have a condition of approval in your materials that was approved by staff that would say, this is approved conditionally on that condition being fulfilled.
Okay, but it didn't say that in the write-up that staff put together on that.
Yeah, the condition of approval is in the staff report, and it was on one of the slides.
I'm old and blind, so I'm getting there eventually.
Because I think you have to do
Okay,
something
so
independent.
yeah, that answers most of my questions. So thank y'all.
Yeah, I just had one question, and it relates to water too. In the presentation you made, you talked about what's available, but you didn't talk about what's needed. how much is needed, how much water you need. Yeah, in terms of water.
Talking about demand.
In other words, it says you have available 598.6 acre feet per year, but how much do you need at full build out? Do you need 600 acre feet, or do you need 400, or what do you need?
It's about 550 if there's full build out, full commercial.
Yeah, it would have been good if you put that into the.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in theirs, but it's not in this. No, it's in. No, right here. It's not here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's in the rest of the document. Yeah, I understand that. Okay.
Okay, good. Roger?
Couple minor questions. In the plan, do you propose a community center like you have in Independence?
Yes. We, in the very, right off of 29 is kind of our first phase. And in that phase is a community center that we're working on the design right now.
Okay. In the development guide, it talks about fencing and walls, but it doesn't specify materials. There is another statement that says no chain link, but when it talks about fences and walls in this particular area, doesn't say anything about materials. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, we, in general, we're complying with wildlife-friendly fencing, which can be various types of materials, and so we haven't like buttoned everything in 100%.
Okay, on the wildlife areas, it does talk specifically about height and materials there, but this is relative to with surrounding particular units or development areas, not wildlife migration. So like, wood rail or plastic or whatever.
Hi, this is Susan Wade with Redland. Yes, the fences will be wood primarily. The walls, we're looking into different stones, natural materials. So I think that's going to be, again, part of the first filing plat where you're going to start seeing some of those details.
I can understand that. I think it should be clarified in the development guide. Secondly, there was a statement in there on the commercial facilities that maximum building height would be 50 feet. And there was some question about that because the county regulations specify 35 feet. And I'm not sure where you're coming from on saying 50 feet maximum versus what the county allows.
So again, as a part of a PUD, you can kind of set more unique parameters, if you will. The primary point with that is we will only be allowed to build as high as fire will support. So currently, they have equipment that supports structures that are 35 feet tall. If in the future they get equipment, whether in conjunction with us or for whatever other reason, then we would be able to have taller non-residential structures.
Again, I think it would be good when you go to the commissioners to clarify that in your development guide because there's some question about that.
Thank you.
Final question is you specifically say that artificial turf is not going to be allowed in any condition. I question why not in residential areas to allow artificial turf versus natural turf because it is more water efficient.
Sorry, Susan Wade again. You're correct. It is much more water efficient. We didn't feel the artificial turf was compatible, to use our own word. We're going to use a variety of natural grasses, low water demand plant material, and I think that we didn't want to bring in that artificial image.
Okay. Answers my question. Okay, now I'm going to go into the major issue just a little bit more about roads. It's confusing throughout the document
on exactly what you're talking about on perimeter roads. And I'll give an example on the Planned Unit Development Exhibit 3, page 3 of 10 by Redland. It specifically shows that the road 174 will be improved only along the areas that are adjacent to the property, not the entire development. And there's no, again, the same provision on County Road 29, where the improvement is limited to only the portion in front of your property. And again, when it goes to the commissioners, I think that should be clarified, because I'm going through all of the documents. I'm confused on how much you're willing to do improvements. And if in fact what you're talking about, what you've said earlier, that you intend to approve 174 and 20 and 29, at least contingent to the entire area of your property, that should be stated. Because in the long term, that's a lot about what the question was. It's not reasonable to put 500 or 600 cars onto an improved section in front of your property and then dump it onto a gravel road.
Okay, we'll address that.
Okay, that's all, Danny. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience. I had, these are probably going to be pretty quick, easy ones. Regarding the floodplain development, I noticed that there was some FEMA and forgive me, the other organization that is the regulatory part of that those permits to do work would have to be approved in the future. And I get some of that, but is there anything material in those developments that encroach on that floodplain or that drainage basin that is material enough that is going to cause you issues in getting approvals in the future? Does that make sense?
Actually, if you could restate the question one more time, I think I know where you're going, but I just
Yeah,
want to make sure.
so you're planning on doing some development that may affect those drainage basins, right?
Correct.
And some of the approvals come through the Army Corps of Engineer and FEMA.
Correct.
And so, but those approvals are in the future. And so
Also
do
correct.
you feel like that they, oh yeah, all of them, sorry. Do you feel like there is anything in those development plan that is potentially going to put at risk whether those approve or not?
No, I don't. And to maybe expand on the answer I gave a little bit earlier, we've kind of did our best to treat Kiowa Creek tributary in particular as an amenity, so we're staying away from it as much as we can because we view it as an asset not only to ourselves but to our future residents.
Agreed.
And so the limitation to those impacts to the floodplain are going to be roadway crossings, and those are actually extraordinarily common. And so from the standpoint of your question, do you anticipate that to be a limitation potentially in the future? No, we certainly do not. A road crossing is quite frequent, so we don't view that as an issue at all.
It's unusual to see a development that has so much drainage basins in the whole property. So
that's true. Our terrain is rolling. That's for sure.
Thank you. Though.
You bet.
Second one is with respects to water, and I know it's a well-worn groove. That would be for Mr. Lytle, I think. When I talked to Spring Valley and also for the Independence Project, the water, what I'm going to call margin, so the maximum allowed based on what your demand anticipation is, was about in the 14-15%. This particular project, from the demand to what you are allowed, is about 8.5%. And not to say that you're outside of your parameters, but when I think of growth and any other factors that may impact that number, is 8.5% cutting that margin a little close? I know I'm a layman speaking about something like that, but it is pretty tight.
We have been very conservative in how we've done the calculations for all of this. So we actually use a factor that is higher than what we believe each house would consume.
Yes, sir.
And so, for example, we're using 0.2 acre feet a house consumed indoors. In Independence, we're running about 0.16.
Okay,
So there
yes.
are other kind of conservation pieces in there, but none of that matters. Every time we bring a plat in, just like Chairman was talking about traffic,
Yep.
same with water. We have to show we have the water, we have to show how it's being consumed in our community and use that math. So if we only have enough for 2,700 units, then that's all. We don't go any further past that.
I appreciate that. I did notice, though, that the DWR also calculates based on what your development plan is, and they come up with their own estimation of what those single-family dwelling units are going to require based on your parameters. So I just didn't. You see where I'm going on with the whole? I'm not saying it's a deal breaker. I'm saying that seems to be quite a bit different than what I've seen in the other projects.
Yeah, and I think the other factor in all of this is the higher density. So some portion of the housing, the units, will be attached. They'll have fewer plumbing fixtures, fewer bathrooms, fewer, typically lower water usage. That will also, I think, kind of play to our favor.
Okay, thank you for the detail. The last thing I had was for Chris McGranahan with LSC. Regarding the traffic, I calculated that of the streets that were named in your report, that there was about, and I'm ballparking, about 60% of those roads without any improvement would be a B or higher on into 2045. And then, but 40% of those, ballparky, are actually in the C, and down to E. There was no D's in that. But I noticed that quite a large percentage of those roads without improvements, and in my experience, a lot of improvements don't always get made sooner than later. They kind of get pushed off a little bit. And so, and I'm not saying that would be your modus operandi here, but I would like to kind of get your thoughts on, am I off base on that estimation on the LOSs on those?
Yeah, we looked at several. This is Chris McGranahan again with LSC. We looked at, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 25 or 30 intersections. And a lot of them
28,
do work,
26,
yeah.
26.
Yeah, and many of them do work quite well today and may work quite well into the future with no future development. The level service B or C, may be an intersection level service, but sometimes we need a turn lane for safety reasons.
Yes.
Like a right turn lane may not be needed to make the level of service work, but it's a safety improvement. So there'll be some improvements out here that are more safety related, like a turn lane here or there, and there'll be some improvements that are more capacity improvements, like extra lanes or enhanced traffic control, whatever. Our traffic study, the county had us look at intersections that wouldn't work well in the future with stop signs. The county had us do a parallel analysis with a roundabout or a traffic signal. And so we had us look at both of those because we're not sure which one the county might want in the future. Traffic signals have benefits and so do roundabouts. And so the traffic, the B, the C, those all work pretty well. So it's really hard to say, it's a big study. So like all the traffic tends to be focused on 2 or 3 corridors, 29 north to County Line, 29 south to Singing Hills. If 174 connects 174 to 178, it tends to be those intersections on those roads where the most improvements are needed.
Thank you. To be sure, this is preliminary, and I understand the nature of that, but where I've seen in times past, even before being on the Planning Commission, where things just get pushed back further and further, either by the county or other entities. So thank you for your response.
You're welcome.
Everybody good? Okay, on these roads, when do the negotiations come in, I believe, along about what? The SIA, when you discuss off-site improvements and what roads are going to be improved and everything else, correct?
Correct. We have kind of a framework in our development agreement, and then
And
each
then
plat will have its
ultimately what
commitments.
happens is when the development comes up and you get there, then you negotiate with the county. It's called a subdivision improvement agreement. And that's where the county pushes for improvements in off-site areas. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So right now what you're seeing is kind of their preliminary plan. So when they go forward with and start working with the county and they get to the point where they start building, then I don't know where the county's going to be, but I would be willing to bet they're going to push that you pave the roads all the way one way and all the way the other. Okay, but I want you guys to realize that's a negotiation effort that's from the county. And that occurs when you do the SIA, and that happens in every development. Okay, so I think the county is going to look at this in the same way that says, okay, do you dump a subdivision out onto a dirt road that's going to have curb and gutter? That's not the answer, okay? So that's how that works. I kind of want to, it will come up, and it won't come up now, but it will definitely come up, and there will be improvements asked for on those roads. And they will be requested by the county. Okay, so one other thing. Are hydrants, is there going to be a hydrant community?
Yes.
Okay. Fire hydrants. Okay. All right, that's all I have. It is 10:52. We ready? We need a motion. First, we need a motion on the yeah, go back to the
It's right there in front.
Can you turn on your mic there? Yes. Oh, are you? Okay, okay.
You got me there? So I make a motion to approve PUD rezone, recommend approval. Thank you. PD-22-0060. We're going to take these separately, correct?
I would say we will take each vote separately.
Okay, so that's the first motion.
We need a second. What's that? Whether, because it'll come with the conditions that were stated in it. Yeah, but you have to do each one individually. You got to do the PUD and do the preliminary plat.
Got it. It's on. That one? I second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and we got a second. So should we go around the table? Aye. Roger?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Motion carries.
C,
What were the last two votes?
2 noes.
Thank you.
Okay, normally what I would like to do, and I think we can, since we have a split vote, what I would ask is that each one of us go through and state a reason as to why we voted. Okay, pardon me? Yes, yeah. And normally what we did was initially we asked people that if they voted, against it, we asked them, but I think it's fair that everybody provide a reason, just quick, just if you could.
I voted for because it follows the guidelines of our master plan.
Okay. Roger?
I vote affirmative because I think that they've satisfied the conditions of the comprehensive plan as well as the county zoning regulations. And I further accept the comments that have been made for the record. In particular, I'm concerned about traffic, and I think you've addressed that. In particular, Danny's comments concerning the future actions that will be taken by the county commissioners.
I voted for it because I think it's something that the county needs. We need a variety of housing out here. 20, 40 acre parcels just don't cut it at this point. So, to provide what we need in terms of economic development and housing.
I voted for it because the case was made that we met all of the criteria. The only open question for me was the 300-year plan, and with the mitigating factors built into this, I believe that we've met the criteria until we get to the metro districts.
Okay. I voted for it because our job is to look at the application and judge it based on the codes. And they met the requirements of the codes probably in every factor possible. That's why.
I voted for it based upon the fact that they met all the code requirements, and also at the same time their answers to questions regarding taking care of the road considerations and the water considerations. Those answers were acceptable.
I voted no because I'm not sold on the idea that it's compatible with the surrounding land uses. It's surrounded by 3 sides of agricultural properties, 1 side by a PUD that is on acreage. I don't understand how we have come to a consensus that a clustered development with commercial development attached to it is compatible with that lifestyle and the rural lifestyle in Elbert County. I'm not making that reach. So that's the number one thing. And I also think there is a disconnect between our comprehensive plan and the desire of the citizens that they want cluster homes. I was at those meetings. I believe the survey was skewed to get the answer of cluster homes, and I don't really feel that that's what the citizens of this county desire, is cluster home communities. The last reason is we have a water plan that's been in the process of being developed, a new water study, and I think it's premature to add 10% of the population to Elbert County, an additional 10% without that additional knowledge. We have a lot of questions about water, and we've ordered a water study that's going to be completed in about 6 months or so. And I think it's premature or irresponsible to add 10% to the population until we get those results of that new water study. the commissioners thought it was important enough to order the water study. I think we need to see what those results are before we add 10% to our population.
I don't know how I could add anything more than what Mike said, but that's how I feel. I'm not good on the water. I'm been very frustrated about it. I think that's a lot of, I'm all for some amount of growth, but I think this is an awful lot of homes in a very small area. And now we have this other that's going to be at that same, going down farther on whatever, what did you say, on 29 or what? I can't envision the amount. I mean, we're just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, and we do not have a good basis for me to feel like it's okay for the water. I don't think that's okay. I really don't think that we need this amount of homes, and I don't think it works. There's no one that talks to me that is in favor of this many homes being in a changing the lifestyle that we have in this county to look like Parker. We're going to be little Parker all over again, and it's just not, it's not comfortable for me.
Okay, all right, at this point, we're at our timeline. Do you guys want to do a vote for the preliminary plat? Shall we get that? So then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll do the service plan. Oh, yes. Correct? We are coming back tomorrow night, right? Okay, preliminary plat. Can I have a motion on that?
Recommend approval of preliminary plat PP-21026 to the county commissioners.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, round the horn.
Second.
Okay. All right. Dwayne?
Oh, are we voting now?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, with that. 2 noes. 2 noes on the end. Okay, with that, we will recess till pardon me? No, we've gone through them. They'll fit. We're at time to end the hearing. If we want reasons, we'll go over them tomorrow. Right now, we're going to recess until tomorrow. No, actually, we have to recess. Yeah, I thought we could adjourn, but we can't. I think the recess is more appropriate until tomorrow at 7.
Yes, Mr.
I don't. Actually, I don't know. I don't think we do. Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Chair, yeah, so a recess and a continuance then with a date, time certain.
Okay, it will be tomorrow, the 8th, at 7 p.m. Same place? Same place.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I've announced previously I cannot be here tomorrow.
You can't? Okay. Roger.